Chapter 5:25. Although the one-armed man only had one arm, it was easy for him to climb such a steep mountain peak. 2 or 3 of his fingers were easily inserted into the cracks of the rock or the ice. He lifted his body with the strength of his fingers and then looked for higher footholds with his feet, climbing up layer by layer. The young woman with the scar on her face was not far from the burly man. She followed the one-armed man closely on both sides. Their breathing did not change, and they even began to talk. "Big brother, do you think the immortal masters of the Heavenly Sword sect will accept us as disciples? After all, according to Immortal Master Lu, our cultivation aptitude is the worst. I heard that the Heavenly Sword sect is one of the top sects in the entire Wei country. Why don't we join other sects? Wouldn't it be easier to learn cultivation techniques?" The young woman moved closer to the one-armed man and asked with a worried expression. The burly man not far away heard this and said in a rough voice, "That's right, big brother. As long as we join an immortal sect, we won't be afraid of those guys. If we succeed in cultivation, we can even avenge our brothers." Hearing this, the one-armed man's climbing speed paused and then returned to normal. He said coldly, "Do you know who those guys are? Ordinary immortal masters don't dare to provoke them." The burly man inserted his thick fingers into the ice of the cliff and asked, "Big brother, do you know who they are?" The young woman also looked at him with confusion. The one-armed man clenched his left fist and broke a piece of ice. He said in a deep voice, "You only know that they are immortal masters. However, when I escaped once, I saw the token on their waists. There were 3 words written on it. 9 Spectres Sect." When a young woman and the burly man heard about the 9 Underworld sect, their figures stopped and their expressions turned blank. After a while, the young woman sighed and said, "No wonder Big Brother wanted to join the Heavenly Sword sect after we escaped. It turns out that those people were immortal masters from the 9 Underworld sect. The 3 of them were not ordinary mortals. They knew some information about the cultivation world. Of course, they knew that the 9 Spectres sect was the second largest sect in the Song state. Its strength was not something that other small sects could compare to. Only the Heavenly Sword sect could suppress it." The one-armed man jumped and accurately blocked a crack with his left hand. He said coldly, "So we must join the Heavenly Sword sect. Otherwise, we will have nowhere to run in the Song state." "Yes, big brother," the other 2 said in unison. Their unreserved trust in the one-armed man was evident in their tone. They also sped up and followed closely behind. For cultivators above the middle stage of the Qi refining stage, a distance of several hundred meters was nothing. As long as they had a flying magic tool, they could easily cross it. However, for mortals, especially teenagers, it was a height of nightmares. But faced with the temptation of becoming an official disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect, the youths below all mustered up their strength and desperately climbed up. But in the heavy snow, not only was the mountain steep, there was also some ice on top, so there was no place to climb. As time passed, some of the youths' hands slipped and fell to the ground. And at this time, there was a talisman outside, shooting over. The young man who fell was like a feather, lightly landing at the foot of the mountain. He would not die in vain. Although they weren't injured, the youths that fell all revealed dejected expressions. This meant that they had failed this trial. Even if they entered the Heavenly Sword sect, they could only be odd-job disciples. Just like this, half a day passed. At the top of the Heavenly Sword peak, there was a platform with a radius of 20 meters. In front of the platform was an arch formed by 2 giant swords that crossed each other. There was a faint layer of light shrouding it, faintly revealing the rugged mountain path behind it. At the edge of the platform, aside from the one-armed man and the other 2, there were also 8 youths, 6 males and 2 females. They were lying on the ground, gasping for breath. These people were the ones that had reached the platform in half a day. Although these youths looked like they were about to die, the joy in their eyes could not be concealed. Completing this trial meant that they had a high chance of becoming an official disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect. In front of the platform, other than the cultivators who had led the team before, there was also a white-haired man standing quietly outside the mountain gate. His body exuded an extremely sharp aura, and his entire person was like an unsheathed sharp sword. The Foundation establishment cultivators that led the group respectfully stood on either side of the white-haired man. As for the chi-refining cultivator surnamed Liu, he had an uneasy expression. After a while, a long cyan flying boat rose from the outside of the platform. On it stood more than 20 youths with depressed expressions. They were all people that had fallen or failed to complete the trial in the specified time. After seeing that everyone had arrived, the white-haired man opened his eyes and coldly glanced at the disciples that wanted to enter the sect. Everyone subconsciously avoided his sharp eyes. However, when he glanced at the one-armed man, he found that the man calmly looked back at him and then respectfully retreated. The white-haired man made a sound of surprise, as if he had discovered something. With a shio sound, he flashed and appeared in front of the one-armed man. He pressed his hand on the man's shoulder, and his body emitted a faint golden light. The one-armed man subconsciously bent his legs slightly and clenched his remaining left fist. However, before he could move, he felt a pressure on his soul from the other party, making him not dare to make the slightest movement. 5 attribute spiritual roots? He's more than 40 years old. What a waste of his divine sense talent. The white-haired man shook his head and muttered. He then used his hands to press down on the young woman and the big man at the same time. Facing the white-haired man's pressure, the two people's hair stood on end, and they did not dare to move. It was as if the person in front of them did not need to use any effort and could kill them with just a breath. 40 years old, 4 and 5 attributes. And what is this? The white-haired man seemed to have discovered something. His hands emitted a golden light, and 2 clouds of purplish-black smoke floated out from the young woman and the big man. The white-haired man looked at the 3 people again and casually extinguished the strange aura. He said faintly, "Junior Brother Guan, these 3 mortals escaped from the 9 Spectres sect." As soon as he said this, the expressions of the one-armed man and the other 2 changed greatly. They did not care about their fear of the white-haired man and adopted a defensive posture. The white-haired man did not seem to see their actions. He turned around and walked towards the other 8 youths that had passed. He said, "Junior Brother Guan, send a disciple to send them to the market on the flat top mountain and throw them to the 9 Spectres sect disciples. Recently, the 9 Spectres sect helped us gather more materials. Consider it as giving them something in return. After all, these 3 mortals were the ones who planted the purple specter's mark on them." The one-armed man and the others immediately reacted. The 3 of them moved in unison without any hesitation. They stomped on the ground and jumped out of the platform like arrows. However, at this moment, a bronze longsword appeared at the edge of the platform, emitting a faint yellow light. The young woman and the big man seemed to have been prepared. They each held a large saber and a long spear in their hands. The one-armed man clenched his left fist and a faint red light appeared. They were actually planning to use mortal martial arts to take on the immortal cultivator's magic weapon. The long sword seemed to emit a disdainful cry and split into 3. They turned into 3 sword lights and slammed towards the 3 people. Bam, bam, bam. Chapter 5:26. As the 3 of them were captured, the long spear and large blade were scattered on the ground, broken into several pieces. The one who made the move was the man surnamed Guan. With his early Foundation establishment cultivation, no matter how strong the 3 mortals' martial arts were, it was impossible for them to escape from his hands. A simple sword technique and vine technique was enough to capture them. The disciple surnamed Liu, who brought the one-armed man and the other 2 back to the sect, didn't say a word during the whole process. To him, bringing the one-armed man and the others back to the Sky Sword Peak was already repaying the favor. Their life and death had nothing to do with him. Not to mention, facing this martial Uncle Linghu, even his master didn't dare to say anything. Within the vines, the red light on the one-armed man's fist gradually dissipated. He lowered his head and didn't say a word. Clearly, he knew that even if they were the best martial artists in Song State, they could barely deal with a cultivator in the middle chi refining stage. Not to mention the white-haired man. The young man who was dealing with them now already displayed a strength that made them feel suffocated. Just now, his third sister and fourth brother's blade and spear technique were almost at their maximum strength. They once used this technique to block an attack from a cultivator in the middle chi refining stage. However, that simple sword light seemed to crush them, shattering their hopes of getting lucky. Feeling the strength of the vines on their bodies, the young woman and the big man showed a bit of despair. The big man couldn't help but shout, "So your Sky Sword sect and the 9 Underworld sect are in cahoots, allowing the 9 Underworld sect to attack us martial artists." "Fourth brother, shut up," the one-armed man said in a low voice. Hearing his brother's words, the big man became even more agitated. He couldn't stop himself and cursed out loud. The white-haired man who just walked in front of the 8 youths had a trace of disgust in his eyes, so noisy. As he spoke, he put his 2 fingers together and a golden sword light appeared out of thin air, shooting towards the one-armed man and the other 2. "You really don't know what's good for you. You actually dare to insult our Sky Sword sect in front of senior brother Linghu. If we send them to the 9 Underworld sect, they might still have a chance to live. At this age, with this kind of spiritual root, you are no different from mortals. You still want to enter our Sky Sword sect." Looking at the captured people, the Heavenly Sword sect's chi condensation disciples all revealed looks of disdain. Even the young men and women who hadn't cultivated yet looked at the one-armed man and the others with superior gazes. Feeling the gazes of the people around him and the glaring sword light, the one-armed man's eyes shone brightly. A burning intent erupted from his remaining left fist, causing the nearby vines to loosen a little. Of course, he knew that the white-haired man could easily kill him with a casual strike, but he wanted to use a move that he didn't dare to use before his life ended. Because the last time he used the simplified version of this move, he had lost his right arm. If he used it at full strength now, he would definitely die. However, he would rather die in his own hands and let his life explode with brilliant sparks than be casually crushed like an ant. As the one-armed man mobilized the energy in his body, his muscles began to spasm. His face twisted in pain, but his eyes were filled with unyielding defiance. Suddenly, a giant fist appeared out of thin air. There was no light from a cultivator on it, and it blocked the one-armed man's path. This was a mortal's fist, but when the terrifying golden sword light collided with it, it directly turned into specks of light and dissipated. It was like an ant trying to shake a tree. It couldn't do anything to this ordinary fist at all. Such a strange scene caused the one-armed man to be dumbfounded. The move he was using suddenly paused. In front of the vines, a tall and sturdy man with an ordinary appearance had appeared out of nowhere. He wore a black suit with a nondescript cotton-padded jacket that was usually worn by young people. After scattering the sword light, the mysterious man quickly patted the one-armed man's left shoulder. This caused the one-armed man's energy to loosen and forcibly blocked the attack. The mysterious man clicked his tongue and said, "Little guy, this move is not something you can use with your current body." From the moment the mysterious man appeared to the moment he spoke, only a short moment had passed. Not only was the one-armed man shocked, but even the surrounding Heavenly Sword sect disciples were shocked. Soon they reacted. "Who is it? How dare you sneak into our Heavenly Sword sect?" Although the surrounding Heavenly Sword sect disciples said so, they were all facing a great enemy. Although they didn't know what method the mysterious man used to break the sword light, they knew that someone who could easily block Martial Uncle Linghu's sword light must be at the top of the Foundation establishment stage. The white-haired man had already turned around. His expression was very serious. He was at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, and his divine sense had reached the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. Others might not have seen the scene clearly, but his divine sense barely caught that moment. This mysterious man had pretended to be a young man who had failed. When he released the sword light, his body suddenly expanded. A purple light flashed, and he appeared in front of the one-armed man. Other than that, the white-haired man didn't notice anything. He couldn't detect this person's spiritual power fluctuations at all. It was like he was immortal. He immediately thought of a possibility. His expression changed, and he quickly activated a sword talisman and shot it into the sect. At this moment, the mysterious man flicked his finger slightly, and a purple light flashed by. The sword talisman was shattered, and a purple ball the size of a marble was revealed. Although this small ball did not have any aura of mana, the white-haired man still felt a strong sense of danger. He couldn't care about anything else. He immediately took out the long sword on his back and stood in front of him. He carefully observed his opponent, no longer as calm as before. For a sword cultivator like him, his battle instincts were very sensitive. This person was able to hide from him and come here, so he was most likely a core formation stage cultivator. He wasn't someone he could deal with. However, his position in the sect wasn't low. He had some life-saving treasures in his hands. Also, under the sect, if there was a big battle, a large number of sword cultivators would rush over. That small ball-breaking talisman? Then, it drew an arc and fell back into the mysterious man's hand. The mysterious man said calmly, "I have no ill intentions towards the heavenly rapier sect. I'm only here to take these 3 people away." After saying that, the mysterious man used 2 hand blades to easily cut off the vines on the ground. Then, he carried the one-armed man and the other 2 on his thick shoulders like stacked sacks and directly jumped down from the platform that was hundreds of feet high. From a moment the mysterious man appeared to the moment he took the 3 people away, there wasn't any spiritual power fluctuation. This person seemed to have completed everything with his physical body. This made the heavenly rapier sect disciples on the platform look at each other. Boom! When the sound of something hitting the ground was heard, the white-haired man took out a sound transmission talisman. He said a few words and sent it into the sect. At this time, the man surnamed Guan asked carefully, "Senior brother Linghu, could that person be a senior?" The white-haired man said in a low voice, "Even with my strength, I couldn't detect any spiritual power fluctuations from this person. He's most likely a core formation stage cultivator. I've already reported this to Marshal Uncle Lin. He'll deal with it." Then he said to himself, "Is there something special about this mortal that the Nine Spectres sect is chasing?" Even a core formation stage cultivator is alarmed. The man surnamed Guan revealed a look of reminiscence and said, "These 3 mortal martial artists are very strong. From the feedback from Junior Brother Swordlight, I'm afraid they can threaten a chi condensation stage cultivator." The white-haired man frowned. Just as he was about to say something, the sect's restrictions opened. An old man flew over, and a powerful spiritual sense spread out in all directions. After a while, the old man looked at the people below and said, "Marshal Nephew Linghu, you guys continue. I'll go meet that guy you mentioned." Chapter 5:27. The one-armed man, the scarred woman, and the reckless man were all stunned by what had happened. They thought they were going to die, but they didn't expect someone to come and save them. What puzzled them was that the mysterious man who saved them didn't look like a cultivator. How could a cultivator save someone while running on his shoulder? At this time, the one-armed man and the woman were carried on his left shoulder, while the man was carried on his right shoulder. The hands that blocked the cultivator's sword were like iron hoops, making them unable to move. The one-armed man watched as the man carried them and jumped down from a height of 1,000 feet, creating a large hole in the ground. The shock in his heart was indescribable. Previously, when the 3 of them wanted to jump off the platform, they had to use the stone wall to slow down their speed and then fall down the mountain. However, this person didn't care about the impact of 1,000 feet. After hitting the ground, he ran wildly into the distance. Feeling the knife-like cold wind on their faces, the one-armed man and the other 2 didn't feel any pain. Instead, they felt an inexplicable sense of security. From the time this person appeared until now, it seemed to them that he didn't use any cultivator skills. Moreover, the one-armed man recalled that this person patted his shoulder. Although the strength wasn't great, a few hidden forces accurately disintegrated his twitching muscle fibers, and the energy in his arm also dissipated. Could it be that he's the legendary martial artist senior who reached the celestial realm? The mysterious man's various actions made the one-armed man think that he was a martial arts senior who had reached a supreme realm. Thinking that a martial artist could fight against a cultivator, he couldn't help but feel excited. Suddenly, the mysterious man who was thought to be a martial artist, Old Monster said with some annoyance, "Oh no, I forgot that these three little guys can't avoid the detection of divine sense. Let's run a bit further. This place is too close to the Heavenly Sword sect. If we meet a nascent soul old man, we'll be in trouble," the mysterious man muttered. Just as he finished speaking, his legs thickened and he ran away at an even more terrifying speed. The three people on his shoulder immediately felt the bone-piercing cold wind hit their faces. The originally soft and fluttering snowflakes became like hidden weapons under the impact of the terrifying speed. If it weren't for their extraordinary physiques, they probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Even so, their exposed skin began to show signs of cracking. It could be seen that this mysterious man was running at a terrifying speed with just his strength alone. Just like that, 15 minutes passed. The three of them who were almost unable to hold on noticed that the mysterious man's speed had finally slowed down. In the end, he stopped at a small, snow-covered hill. The man's shoulders shook slightly as he threw the three of them onto the ground. He then turned around and looked in the direction of the Heavenly Sword sect. The Heavenly Sword Peak's silhouette was covered by the heavy snow, so he couldn't see it clearly. However, in the midst of the snowflakes, there was a ray of white light shooting from afar. Seeing this, the mysterious man smiled. A purplish-black metal ball the size of a fist appeared in each of his hands. Then, the two balls rapidly shrank to the size of marbles. His two arms swelled slightly, and even his palms became much thicker. The two marbles were shot out by a strange force from his fingertips, making a sharp sound as they pierced through the air. They shot towards the white light that was flying towards him. Dang dang. Two crisp sounds rang out. The white light paused, revealing the figure inside. An old man wearing a white robe was standing in the air. In front of him was a broad and long sword. It was obvious that he used this sword to block the previous two attacks. Whoosh whoosh. The two marble-sized, purplish-black balls also returned to the mysterious man's hand. He coughed lightly and said, "So it's a fellow Taoist from the Heavenly Sword sect. These three people are somewhat related to me. Please forgive me for taking them away in a hurry." The white-robed old man's expression was quite serious. The opponent's casual attack didn't contain any magic power, but the power was not small. It was at least close to the attack of a core formation cultivator. Furthermore, even with the old man's powerful divine sense, he couldn't detect the opponent's cultivation level. This made him somewhat cautious. Looking at the calm man, he slowly said, "They're merely three mortals. Fellow Taoist can take them away. I'm Lin Yuanji from the Heavenly Sword sect. How may I address you?" The mysterious man chuckled and said, "I'm also a cultivator from the Wei Kingdom. It's just that I've been cultivating in another kingdom these past few years. Since fellow Taoist agrees, I'll take my leave first. See you again." After the mysterious man finished speaking, his body emitted a purplish glow. A powerful aura spread out. He waved his hand and released a screen of light, capturing the stunned one-armed man and the other two on the ground. Accompanied by the sound of thunder, the mysterious man wrapped the three people up and turned into a purplish light. He shot into the distance and disappeared into the snow in the blink of an eye. The white-robed old man squinted his eyes and muttered, "He's actually a core formation cultivator who cultivates a thunder attribute technique. But why didn't the marble-like attack have any magic power? Could it be a secret technique?" It seems that the marble-like pair of marble-like objects had a trace of magic power. Or maybe it's a magic power with a special ability. The old man's first thought was about the technique that the mysterious man revealed. He didn't care about the one-armed man and the other two at all. In his opinion, the three of them should have some relationship with the mysterious man from the mortal world. The old man pondered for a moment, then shook his head and returned to the Heavenly Sword sect. This strange core formation cultivator was just passing by three people who had no future in cultivation. There was no need for him to take the risk of fighting with him. In the middle of a barren mountain in the Tsang province, There were 8 men and women in their 30s and 40s. These people all had weathered faces, and there were more or less sword wounds on their bodies. Almost all of them had weapons by their side. Some were swords, some were short knives, some were long staffs, some were halberds, and others. Their exuberant energy made it obvious that they were the top martial artists among mortals. These people were all in all sorts of strange postures. Some were doing handstands with one hand, some were using one arm to support their body. These were all postures that required a high level of physical strength. These people's eyes were all filled with fanaticism. It was obvious that they were very eager to practice these postures. Outside the circle of martial artists, there were 5 young men and women sitting cross-legged. One of them, who was the largest and had an honest look on his face, said, "What do you think Master found in the Heavenly Sword Sex group?" He actually went there personally. A young man playing with a dark golden triangular blade smiled and said, "Xiao Yanzi, Master must have found martial artists who are very suitable for body cultivation. In addition, the Heavenly Sword Sex sword cultivators are very strong. He was afraid that we wouldn't be able to handle them, so he went there personally." Another man in a green robe looked at the fanatical martial artists in the middle and said with emotion, "Master is really smart. He picked these martial artists with a strong desire to become the second generation of disciples. Master asked us to investigate the recruitment dates of the top 10 sects and sneak into these groups to observe the top martial artists who want to join the immortal sects but have extremely poor spiritual roots. These people will definitely be rejected by the immortal sects because of their age and aptitude. Spiritual roots aren't that important for body cultivation. We only need to consider these people's temperaments, investigate their past behavior, and then consider their physical body." After some twists and turns, we finally picked out these 8 martial artists with 3-star physiques and above from the Chu country. Although they are a little old, they all have spiritual roots. In addition, they have been immersed in mortal martial arts for 20 to 30 years. It is very easy for them to get started with the Vajra art. A man with a delicate face nodded and said, "The most important thing is the Vajra art. The most important thing is that these top martial artists have experienced so much in the mortal world. Their willpower has long been tempered to an extremely strong level. Their obsession now is to reach a higher realm." Chapter 528. It turned out that these 5 youths were the first generation of body cultivators, Zhao, Qing Tian, and the others. They had followed Lu Kuan's instructions and spent a lot of time in Chu to find 8 martial artists who were very suitable for body cultivators. The top-notch martial artists with spiritual roots were the second generation of body cultivators that Lu Kuan wanted to recruit. To become a top-notch martial artist among mortals, even if they had practiced martial arts from a young age and were exceptionally intelligent, they would need to be at least 30 years old before they could become a top-notch martial artist. For immortal cultivators at 30 years old, unless they had top-notch aptitudes like celestial spiritual roots or dual spiritual roots, even if they obtained immortal cultivation techniques, it would be very difficult for them to even reach the late Qi refining stage, let alone the foundation establishment stage. Excellent spiritual roots were very rare, and top-notch martial artists with such spiritual roots were even rarer. It was already very rare to have a spiritual root of 4 or 5 attributes. Because top-notch martial artists had extremely high strength, they could barely deal with some low-tier class 1 demonic beasts. When they came into contact with immortal cultivators, they would gradually realize that their strength was not even worth mentioning when compared to immortal cultivators. As top-notch martial artists, they had their own pride. They were unwilling to give up and wanted to reach the level of immortal cultivators. However, among them, only a few people who had spiritual roots tested by loose cultivators had the opportunity to participate in the selection of the major sections. The major immortal cultivation sects did not care how high one's martial arts strength was. They only cared about spiritual roots and age. These elderly top-notch martial artists were obviously not favored, and one could imagine what happened to them. Some of them were depressed after being chased away by the immortal cultivation sections. They gave up on their pursuit of immortality and went to the mortal cities to be local tyrants, living in peace for the rest of their lives. As for those who were determined and wholeheartedly wanted to reach a higher level, they continued to think of ways to enter the immortal cultivation sects, looking for that slim chance. Lu Kuan had his eyes on such martial artists. For body cultivators, he did not care about spiritual roots. As long as they were not over 45 years old, they would still have chance. The most important thing was their perseverance and dedication to pursue a higher level of cultivation. In the end, Zhao, Qingtian, and the others picked out 8 of these martial artists. They also discovered that each of these top-notch martial artists had a physique no less than 3 stars. One even had a 4-star physique. However, after thinking about it, it was very normal. Without physique aptitude, how could they stand out among the mortal martial artists? A master is back. Suddenly, a series of thunderous roars came from the horizon, and a purple light flew over from afar. Seeing this familiar light, Zhao Qingtian and the others stood up one after another. The 8 cultivators who were cultivating also looked excited. They all stopped what they were doing and looked at the figure that was shooting towards them with reverence in their eyes. In the blink of an eye, the purple light landed on the hill, revealing Lu Kuan's burly figure, as well as 2 men and a woman who were somewhat dizzy. "Greetings, Grandmaster." Seeing the newcomer, the 8 martial artists spoke in unison, their tone extremely respectful. Lu Kuan carefully observed them and nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad. In just a few months, you have all reached the advanced stage of the first stage. It seems that after we return, we can use the world energy on the island to quickly temper our bodies. Continue your cultivation." "Yes, Grandmaster." Hearing Lu Kuan's praise, these martial artists seemed to have returned to the scene when they first came into contact with martial arts. Their fighting spirit was high as they continued to cultivate in the center of the hill. "Master, you personally brought these 3 people. I feel that they are very strong." This aura is somewhat familiar." Huang Xiaoyan put away the triangular blade in his hand with a curious look on his face. Zhao Qingtian also frowned and said, "Master, their physical bodies are very strong. Their aura is similar to the Vajra esoteric art." The others also nodded and looked at Lu Kuan with puzzled eyes. Lu Kuan smiled and said, "This is why I personally went this time. They should be cultivating the Vajra esoteric art, but the details are somewhat different." After saying that, Lu Kuan turned around and looked at the one-armed man and the others, asking, "The cultivation method that the 3 of you cultivate is somewhat related to us. Can you tell us where you learned it?" The young woman and the burly man looked a little confused at this moment, as if they had not recovered from the high-speed flight in the sky. The one-armed man, on the other hand, was much better. The one-armed man looked at the 8 people cultivating in the distance, then looked at Lu Kuan in front of him, and suddenly said, "Pardon me for asking, but what is the relationship between Senior and the 9 Spectres sect?" Lu Kuan waved his hand and said, "I heard your conversation. Don't worry, I once killed an elder of the 9 Spectres sect. I have a grudge with them, so you don't have to worry." The one-armed man heard this and heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he said in a solemn tone, "Senior saved our lives. Li Qianfeng is willing to die 1,000,000 times. As for the cultivation method, it's like this." The one-armed man, Li Qianfeng, revealed a look of reminiscence and said slowly, "Actually, the cultivation method that I cultivate is the Azure Water sect's sect-guarding cultivation method from hundreds of years ago, the Azure Water technique." When Lu Kuan heard the words Azure Water sect, his eyes narrowed and unconsciously revealed a little murderous intent. Li Qianfeng was immersed in his memories and did not notice. He continued, "It is said that the Azure Water sect provoked an immortal cultivator and caused the sect to be destroyed. The whereabouts of the Azure Water technique were unknown. Until a certain day more than 70 years ago, the Azure Water sect's Jianghu spread the news of the Azure Water sect's treasure map. This time, the entire Azure Water sect's martial artists were in an uproar. The Azure Water sect's strength could be said to be the strongest in Azure Water sect. Even one of the elders was invincible in Azure Water sect. After a series of real and fake treasure maps, 5 top-level martial artists finally found the real Azure Water sect's treasure map. They also found the most precious Azure Water technique. Li Qianfeng revealed a trace of respect and said, "Back then, these 5 top martial artists were sworn brothers who had gone through life and death together. They didn't fight over this cultivation method. Instead, they made 4 copies and studied each of them. After the 5 seniors obtained the Azure Water technique, they studied it and found that it was a strange cultivation method that purely tempered the body. When cultivated to the peak, the body could display incredible power. However, the 5 seniors were already old, and it was difficult for them to cultivate this cultivation method. Until the end of their lives, they had not cultivated to the highest realm of the Azure Water technique. They could only pass it on to the next generation." Li Qianfeng sighed and said, "The people of Jianghu have long coveted the secret manuals of the 5 seniors. After their deaths, there were further fights for the secret manuals. Gradually, the Azure Water technique spread. As time passed, someone finally cultivated the Azure Water technique to the highest realm and swept away the Azure Water sect's martial artists. It could be said that the Azure Water technique made the Azure Water sect's Jianghu more powerful. Gradually, most of the Azure Water sect's Jianghu martial artists more or less cultivated the Azure Water technique. Then a trace of fear flashed in Li Qianfeng's eyes. But I don't know when it started, but the seniors who cultivated the Azure Water technique began to disappear one by one. At first, no one noticed anything. However, at the most recent Jianghu convention, all the seniors did not appear. It was then that the martial artists who cultivated the Azure Water technique began to panic. I, Li Qianfeng, and a few of my brothers have cultivated the Azure Water technique since childhood. Our aptitude is not weak. We have cultivated the Azure Water technique to the 4th and 5th level. After discovering that these seniors had disappeared, we also went into hiding." Chapter 529. 5th layer? Judging from the strength of your physical body, it should be far above the 5th layer. At this moment, Lu Kuan suddenly spoke. Li Qianfeng was slightly stunned, then respectfully said, "Seniors' eyes are like torches. This junior's cultivation was at the 5th layer 3 years ago, when the 9 underworld sects cultivators first came to find us." Then his eyes dimmed as he said, "That time, in order to save me, second brother died under the cultivator's ice magic. Although second brother had consumed most of the magic's power, it didn't kill me. Instead, it allowed me to make a breakthrough. With the help of third aunt and fourth brother, we finally trapped this cultivator in a secret room with a mechanism." Li Qianfeng paused for a moment before continuing. "In the following days, we found another place to hide. Who would have thought that the 9 underworld sects immortal cultivators would be able to easily track us down and find us again? This time, it was an even stronger cultivator. Even if the 3 of us increased our strength, we couldn't break through the cultivator's barrier and were easily subdued. However, this cultivator didn't kill us. Instead, he brought us into the land of death, a terrifying forbidden area filled with the aura of death and dangerous creatures." Li Qianfeng's remaining fist creaked as he clenched it. "This guy brought us into a cave. There were over 100 cultivators there. These cultivators were all cultivators of the Azure Water art. It turns out that the missing people were all captured there." Li Qianfeng's face was filled with resentment. "When we arrived at the cave, we discovered that many cultivators were being tortured inhumanely. Those 9 underworld sects cultivators didn't treat the cultivators as humans at all. They conducted all kinds of terrifying experiments on the cultivators' bodies." Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. Could it be that the 9 underworld sects people used the aura of the land of death to invade your bodies and refine you into zombies? Li Qianfeng hatefully said, "Senior, it would be great if those guys refined us into zombies, because that way we would die immediately and be free. But these bastards actually cut off the martial artist's flesh and forcefully used magic to install the zombies' rotten flesh. That rancid, cold, and disgusting flesh makes me want to vomit just by standing close to it, let alone when it's merged with my own body. When Zhao Qingtian and the others heard this, even if their will was firm, they could not help but turn pale. Then Li Qianfeng revealed a trace of relief and said, "But these cruel bastards didn't do this to the three of us from the start. Instead, they first cast a spell to slowly inject the cold aura of the land of death into our bodies. Later, I found out from other martial artists that they planned to modify our bodies before embedding the rotten flesh of the zombies. That's because they discovered that martial artists who haven't adapted to the aura of death won't be able to survive for long after combining with the rotten flesh. They will soon die in pain." Just like that, half a year passed under the catalysis of the death aura. During this period of time, we also found out that the cultivators of the 9 Underworld sect seemed to want to research something through the bodies of martial artists and zombies. But they didn't expect one thing. Li Qianfeng looked at his own body and murmured, "It was with the help of the aura of death that I broke through to the last level of the Azure Water technique in just over a year. Even San Yang and the others entered the 6th level. We kept enduring until one day, when a few of the top martial artists seemed to have mutated with the rotten flesh of the zombies. At the same time, they went berserk and restrained many immortal cultivators. Only then did we take advantage of the rapid increase in our strength to find an opportunity to escape." Then he touched his empty sleeve and said, "Not long after we escaped from the land of death, we were caught up by an immortal cultivator. But how could we be willing to be fish on the chopping block again? We could only watch helplessly as our bodies were stuffed with rotten flesh. We could only fight to the death." It was also during that battle that I suddenly comprehended a few incomplete fist techniques of the Azure Water technique. When I used my full strength, I actually unleashed an attack that was comparable to an immortal cultivator's fire magic. That immortal cultivator also seemed to be injured, so I took him by surprise and broke his protective shield. But when I unleashed such a punch, my right arm couldn't withstand it and was completely burned. Hearing this, Lu Kuan raised his eyebrows and said, "You awakened your divine sense during that battle?" Li Qianfeng was slightly stunned, then nodded and said, "I only learned about divine sense later." That's right, if it wasn't for the emergence of divine sense, I wouldn't have been able to use this move. And I wouldn't have been able to discover the mark that the immortal cultivator of the 9 Underworld sect left on our bodies. He turned his head to look at the young woman and the big man who had woken up and said happily, "After killing that immortal cultivator, my divine sense discovered the mark on our bodies. Finally, combined with the technique I comprehended from that punch, I used the life aura in my body, it should be spiritual energy, to cover it up. Although there was no way to completely block it, at least I was able to minimize the effect of this mark." Lu Kuan raised his head and looked in the direction of the Heavenly Sword Peak, then looked at Li Qianfeng and the others and said slowly, "Later on, you came into contact with other immortal cultivators and discovered that only by joining the Heavenly Sword sect could you deal with the 9 Underworld sect, right?" Li Qianfeng's eyes flashed with anger and said, "This junior indeed thought so, but I didn't expect that because we were too old and had poor spiritual roots, we were treated like goods by the Heavenly Sword sect. If it wasn't for Senior's rescue, I'm afraid that we would have returned to the cave of the 9 Underworld sect, where we couldn't see the light of day." After a moment of silence, Zhao Qingtian took a deep breath and said, "Master, could it be that the 9 Underworld sect wants to study Wang Shitong's corpse refining technique?" Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with anger and said, "I didn't find anything related to the Vajra arts on Wang Shitong's body. It seems that he left it in the 9 Underworld sect." Then he looked at Li Qianfeng and said, "Recite the Azure Water arts." This one-armed peak martial artist seemed to have understood something from Lu Kuan's words. He didn't ask any questions and silently recited the cultivation technique that he had cultivated for many years. Gradually, Zhao Qingtian and the others revealed expressions that they had expected it. After Li Qianfeng finished reciting, Lu Kuan nodded and said, "It seems that this Azure Water arts is the Vajra arts, but there are many parts that are missing. It should have been obtained by Wang Shitong from Senior Ling. Lu Kuan coldly snorted and said, "The 9 underworld sect's actions are obviously imitating Wang Shitong from back then, but they are even more ruthless. They used the martial artists of the Tsang province as materials and laid down a tracking technique. When the time is right, they will capture all the martial artists who cultivated the Vajra arts in one fell swoop." However, Wang Shitong obviously didn't leave behind his corpse refining technique, or the corpse refining technique that he left behind is incomplete, so they need to experiment like this. After hearing Lu Kuan's analysis, the first generation of body cultivators clenched their fists and spoke with hatred. "Damn the 9 underworld sect. Master, let's hide in the shadows and teach the 9 underworld sect a lesson. Yes, let's eliminate more foundation establishment disciples of the 9 underworld sect." Chapter 530. Lu Kuan was silent for a moment. Then he looked at Li Qianfeng and asked, "Little guy, you want to go to the Heavenly Sword sect to learn a cultivation technique to deal with the 9 underworld sect, right?" Li Qianfeng replied seriously, "That's right. Junior knows that with our age and spiritual roots, the possibility of us entering a higher realm is very small, even if we learn a cultivation technique. But if we don't seize this opportunity, we won't be able to escape the 9 underworld sect pursuit for the rest of our lives." Lu Kuan nodded inwardly and continued, "I have a set of cultivation techniques here. With your age and spiritual roots in your 30s, it is entirely possible for you to reach the chi refining, foundation establishment, and even core formation stages. However, the pain and suffering you will encounter is far from what a traditional cultivator can compare to. Are you willing to learn?" Li Qianfeng suddenly raised his head, his eyes flashing incessantly, like a drowning person breathing fresh air or a person in the darkness seeing the light. "Junior is willing. No matter how painful it is, I can endure it." Hearing Li Qianfeng's fanatical words, Lu Kuan looked at the two behind him and asked, "What about you two?" How could the young woman and the large man not know that they had encountered an opportunity? How could they refuse? Lu Kuan nodded and looked in the direction of the land of death. A golden light flashed in his eyes, and 3 light screens shot out from his hands, directly sucking in Li Qianfeng, Pan Yin, and Zhao Qingtian. Then, he turned into a purple light and shot out. A sentence came from afar. "I'm going to the land of death. You guys guide the 2nd generation disciples well." Seeing their master fly away without saying anything, Huang Xiaoyun, Yu Xian, and Sher Chao's expressions eased a little. Although their master didn't say anything, his words were overflowing with killing intent. Clearly, those people from the 9 underworld sect were in for a bad time. Yu Xian sighed and looked at the young woman and the large man, who had a worried expression, and said, "Don't worry. With Master taking action, those cultivators will definitely be rescued. Now, let me introduce the situation of our sect." The young woman and the large man immediately pricked up their ears and listened respectfully. Lu Kuan rapidly flew through the air as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. His encounter with Li Qianfeng at the foot of the Sky Sword Peak was completely out of his expectations. At that time, he had only felt a trace of a familiar physical aura, so he had mixed in with the team. He hadn't expected that when Li Qianfeng resisted the Heavenly Sword sect's cultivators, he had almost used the Essence Fire Waterfall Fist. He couldn't be more familiar with this fist technique. As soon as Li Qianfeng activated it, he recognized it. Therefore, Lu Kuan was willing to take the risk to save these 3 people. In order to prevent the cultivators in the Heavenly Sword sect from sensing it, Lu Kuan had only used his physical strength when he saved them. He had not used any magic power at all. Otherwise, if a strange core formation cultivator's mana fluctuation appeared on the Heavenly Sword Peak, it would definitely be discovered by the Heavenly Sword sect's core formation stage sword cultivators. If it alerted the nascent soul stage cultivators, then he would be in trouble. It must be known that the 2nd generation disciples that were recruited in the Chu country were all chased away by the sects before being taken away by the Lu Kuan and company. They simply wouldn't fight with the cultivators of these sections. Lu Kuan didn't save Li Qianfeng and company for nothing. In addition to obtaining these 3 second-generation disciples with a foundation, he also knew that the Nine Spectres sect had an incomplete Vajra arts. The cultivators of this sect actually followed the rumors that he had spread in the past and turned all the cultivators in the Tsang prefecture into chess pieces, fighting to be the first to cultivate this body-tempering technique. Although the Azure Water art was incomplete, from the looks of Li Qianfeng's physical body, the 7th layer of the large success stage was equivalent to the 5th layer of the Vajra arts. Otherwise, even if Li Qianfeng had awakened his divine sense and comprehended the essence fire waterfall fist hidden in the Azure Water art, he wouldn't have been able to use this fist technique. As Lu Kuan flew through the air, his eyes flashed with a contemplative look. I originally thought that after Wang Shitong's death, the matter of refining corpses wouldn't occur. I didn't expect that he would leave behind an incomplete Vajra arts in the Nine Spectres sect. The cultivation world is so vast. The Nine Spectres sect isn't the only sect that has corpse refining techniques. Many demonic sects in the state of Qi have secret techniques related to corpse refining. The body of a body cultivator is an exceptional material. In the future, I'll have to investigate the sects in the state of Qi that are proficient in corpse refining techniques and take precautions. Soon after, Lu Kuan increased his speed and flew towards the land of death. Relying on the tyrannical magic power of a core formation cultivator, his speed wasn't the slightest bit slow, even though he was carrying 3 people. After about half a day, they entered the land of death. Although there were a few low-level cultivators of the Nine Spectres sect patrolling the area, Lu Kuan intentionally concealed himself and didn't discover them at all. Finally, under Li Qianfeng's guidance, Lu Kuan discovered that the cave where the Azure Tide art cultivators were imprisoned was where Wang Shitong had been in the past. Lu Kuan was 2.5 kilometers away from the cave. Relying on his powerful spiritual sense, he was able to see the entire cave that was enveloped in a foundation, establishment, isolation formation. Even though Lu Kuan had dealt with Wang Shitong before, his face still turned ugly. He took a deep breath and said, "Little Yin, the deepest part of the cave isn't enveloped by a formation. With your attainments in the Earth Escape technique, you can bring Qing Tian in. As for the Nine Spectres sect disciples inside, leave none alive." Hearing their master's words that were filled with killing intent, Pan Yin and Zhao Qingtian suddenly thought of something. Without saying anything, they immediately transformed into streaks of yellow light and disappeared into the earth. Li Qianfeng's eyes widened as he watched this scene. Although he had come into contact with a few cultivators, he had never seen this Earth Escape technique before. "Qianfeng, I'll take advantage of this time to tell you about the situation of my body cultivator lineage." When Li Qianfeng heard the 2 words body cultivator, he naturally thought of this grandmaster in front of him. Previously, when he saved them on the Sky Sword Peak, he didn't use any cultivator methods at all. Just by relying on his ordinary but awe-inspiring fists, he was able to block the cultivator's sword light that made them feel despair. Later on, even the immortal-like old man who could fly in the air was blocked by a projectile shot out by his exquisite technique. That was a cultivator. He, Li Qianfeng, was known as the #1 Iron Fist in Tsang Province. He had reached the highest realm of the Azure Tide art. He had sacrificed an arm and used the Azure Tide art's hidden killer move to barely kill a cultivator of the lowest level. Yet, his grandmaster was able to use a cultivator's fists, legs, and finger techniques to fight with a high-level cultivator. This meant that when the physical defense and strength of the body reached a certain level, one could completely contend with a cultivator. When Li Qianfeng thought of this, he suddenly understood and said, "Grandmaster's body cultivator, is it tempering the body?" Lu Kuan said with a proud tone, "That's right. Body cultivator is to continuously cultivate the body to the extreme. When your fist is as hard as a magic tool and your strength reaches 10,000 pounds or even 100,000 pounds, you will find that the attacks of cultivators and magic tools are only SOSO. When you cultivate the introductory technique, the Vajra esoteric art, to great success you'll be able to deal with an ordinary cultivator in the middle chi refining stage without using magic power. Oh right, the Azure Tide art you cultivate is the incomplete Vajra esoteric art. Lu Kuan used his divine sense to observe the situation in the cave while explaining the basic knowledge of body cultivators to Li Qianfeng. Chapter 531. After about a quarter of an hour, a small gap suddenly opened in the spell formation that enveloped the cave. A strange red light shot out from within, and after a slight tremble, it quickly rushed out. The blood-red light was extremely fast. Even compared to a core formation stage cultivator, it was only slightly inferior. Lu Kuan's mouth revealed a trace of a sneer, and he stopped speaking. The falling lightning ball had been shrunk to the size of a pellet by his magic power and had been hidden in his hand for a long time. Seeing this red light, Lu Kuan's hands expanded a little, and a purple pellet was directly shot out. Its speed was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. Pooh! A slight sound was heard, and the blood-red light paused. The bloody light outside dissipated, revealing the figure of a black-robed man. This person was crouched on a leaf-shaped magic tool. There was a small bloody hole in his head, and his pupils were dilated. His eyes revealed a trace of relief that he had escaped with his life. Soon after, another falling thunderball hit his body, causing a flash of lightning to erupt and burn the cultivator's body to ashes. Then, the two falling thunderballs returned to the size of a fist and nimbly sandwiched the flying magical artifact and a storage bag between them, wanting to fly back to their original location. Seeing the power of this move, Lu Kuan silently nodded in his heart. After entering the core formation stage, his magic power had further stimulated the transformation of the silver dragon meteorite. In addition to being able to increase the size of the falling lightning ball, he could even shrink it to the size of a marble. Originally, Lu Kuan's battle habit was to use an even larger iron ball to bombard the enemy with a huge force. However, some time ago, he found a top-notch martial artist who was proficient in the divine flicking finger technique among the second generation of disciples that he recruited, which gave him a lot of inspiration. Under Lu Kuan's delicate control of power, the marble-sized falling lightning ball was also able to display an extremely strong power. Although the falling lightning ball was only a pseudo-magic tool, the core of the silver dragon meteorite could only be smelted by a late nascent soul stage cultivator. Just by relying on this material, it could completely resist any magic tool and would not be destroyed by the magic tool's power. It was just that it could not display Lu Kuan's core formation stage magic power. Because the force was exerted from the fingertips and forearms, the force contained in it was not high. Even if Lu Kuan activated the arm connection divine ability, the force of a shot from his fingertips was barely close to the threshold of 50,000 kilograms. Fortunately, its penetrative power was extremely strong. Its true power was still at the level of the core formation stage. If this falling lightning ball was refined into a spirit communication magic treasure, then the old man from the Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't have been able to block it so easily. As for the Nine Spectres sect cultivator who had just used the blood escape technique to escape, he was easily struck by the lightning pellets. With his late foundation establishment stage cultivation, he was simply unable to withstand a core formation stage attack and was easily killed by Lu Kuan. It wasn't until Lu Kuan grabbed the storage pouch of the Nine Underworld sect cultivator that Li Qianfeng, who was at the side, finally reacted. The scene of Lu Kuan killing an immortal cultivator in the blink of an eye was deeply imprinted in his mind, causing his heart to become incomparably firm. At this moment, the spell formation trembled and opened. Pan Yin and Zhao Qingtian walked out with unsightly expressions. When they saw the storage pouch in Lu Kuan's hand, they relaxed a little. Then, Pan Yin shouted a few words behind him. More than 20 middle-aged men and women supported each other as they staggered out. When Li Qianfeng saw this, he immediately used some kind of qing gong and scuttled over. Li Qianfeng's actions were immediately discovered by these cultivators. However, when they saw who it was, many of them revealed expressions of joy. Iron Fist Li Qianfeng. Brotherly seems to be with them. He really is here to save us. The surviving cultivators seemed to recognize Li Qianfeng, and the last trace of doubt on their faces dissipated. At this moment, Lu Kuan turned into a dazzling bolt of lightning and shot into the cave. Qing Tian, take out the silver dragon spirit shuttle and remove the markings from these cultivators. Treat their injuries, and we will immediately prepare to leave. Qing Tian nodded and then took out the silver dragon spirit shuttle. He formed a series of hand seals, and the light purple spirit shuttle expanded to its limit. Then, he organized the remaining cultivators to remove the 9 specters' sex markings from him and Pan Yen. These markings were hidden very deeply. Ordinary early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators wouldn't be able to discover them. However, Zhao Qingtian and the others had a divine sense technique, and their divine senses were much stronger than other Foundation establishment cultivators of the same level. They could easily discover and remove them. As for treating injuries, Zhao Qingtian was best at it. He had the wood attribute magic power of the primordial tree body tempering art. In addition, these people also had the same body tempering art as the Vajra art. This simple treatment didn't take much time. When Zhao Qingtian was treating the cultivators, he would occasionally look at the cave with a heavy expression. Previously, when he and Pan Yen went in, they discovered that it was a hellish scene. Most of the cultivators had already fused with the flesh and blood of the zombies, but their consciousness was still present. They were enduring both mental and physical pain. The intermittent roars, screams, and gasps made the two's hair stand on end. In the deepest part of the cave, there were more than 10 cultivators who had completely turned into refined corpses. Their lifeless eyes and tattered cultivators' clothes made Zhao Qingtian and the others extremely angry. The two of them immediately attacked the cultivators of the 9 Spectres sect. This place was filled with mortal cultivators. Therefore, the 9 Spectres sect arranged for most of the cultivators to be at the Qi refinement stage. There was only one Foundation establishment stage cultivator to hold the fort. Even if this disciple had the cultivation of a mid-stage Foundation establishment stage, it was nothing to Zhao Qingtian and the others. However, this Foundation establishment stage cultivator activated some kind of secret technique in the end and temporarily controlled all the cultivators who had fused with the zombies' flesh and blood. From there, he waited for an opportunity to escape. After he was killed by Lu Kuan, the remaining cultivators regained control of themselves. After they woke up, they committed suicide one after another. The scene of 40 to 50 people committing suicide at the same time had a strong impact on Zhao Qingtian and the others. Therefore, there were only about 20 cultivators who survived in the end. They were all cultivators who had their bodies tempered by the cold yin energy and hadn't fused with the zombies' flesh and blood. And Zhao Qingtian was currently treating these people's bodies that had been damaged by the cold yin energy. Just like that, after another 15 minutes, the imprints in these cultivators' bodies were removed. Their bodies had recovered quite a bit, and they were barely able to walk on their own. Lu Kuan also walked out of the cave. His expression was calm, and one couldn't tell what he was thinking. He ordered all the cultivators to enter the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle and let Zhao Qingtian control the fully loaded Spirit Shuttle. Lu Kuan absorbed the remaining cultivators into the light. He coldly looked in the direction of the land of death. Wang Shidong's method is definitely controlled by a core formation stage cultivator. A Foundation establishment stage cultivator wouldn't dare to be so brazen. After I settle the matters of the body refining pavilion, I will definitely eliminate this guy. No matter how powerful the blood escape technique is, it still needs time to cast it. Now, my move can completely catch him off guard and interrupt his casting. After making up his mind, Lu Kuan used his spiritual sense to carefully examine the remaining cultivators on the spirit shuttle. After a while, he was somewhat disappointed. As expected, spiritual roots are very rare. None of them have spiritual roots, but their physical cultivation isn't bad. All of them are at the 3rd or 4th layer of the Vajra arts. However, these people will also be helpful to the development of the body refining pavilion. Chapter 532. Less than half a day after Lu Kuan and company left, a middle-aged woman with a stiff expression appeared above the cave that Lu Kuan had destroyed. Looking at the mess below, a furious voice came from her mouth. Who dared to destroy this place? This cave clearly has the mark of my 9 Spectres sect. Even a Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't act recklessly. Damn it, my disciple also didn't escape. I still haven't had the time to check the results of the latest corpse refining technique. Although the woman's tone was extremely angry, the strange thing was that her facial expression didn't change, as if she was dead. However, her eyes still flickered with anger. Soon after, the middle-aged woman entered the cave and carefully investigated. However, even with her peak early core formation level spiritual sense, she only discovered the remnants of unfamiliar foundation establishment stage spiritual power. All the refined corpses and martial practitioners in the cave had completely disappeared. However, from the ashes in the cave, it was clear that the semi-finished refined corpses were destroyed and not taken away. Following her investigation, the woman's eyes revealed a pondering expression. There are almost no clues left behind. The person who destroyed this place didn't want my 9 Spectres sect to know their origins. Could be a loose cultivator? Even the disciple with the blood escape technique didn't escape. It seems that there were at least 7 or 8 foundation establishment stage cultivators who attacked. There were even those who were proficient in aura concealment techniques. That's right, the dozen or so mature refined corpses have disappeared. It seems that they were taken away by the attackers. Although these refined corpses haven't undergone the final step of refinement and are only equivalent to Great Circle Chi refinement stage cultivators, their value is extraordinary to ordinary loose cultivators. The woman seemed to have thought of something, and her tone became even more certain. In the black market, these refined corpses are comparable to Great Circle Chi refinement stage cultivators. The value isn't low. We have to pay attention to the nearby large markets. We must capture these hateful loose cultivators. With the speed of a foundation establishment stage cultivator, they might not have gone too far. Soon after, she turned into a pitch-black streak of light and flew towards the nearest market. As for those mortal martial practitioners, this core formation stage cultivator didn't pay the slightest attention to them. In her mind, those martial practitioners must have been killed by the invading cultivators. Disregarding the judgment of the female core formation cultivator of the 9 Spectres sect, the instigator, Lu Kuan, had already brought the martial practitioners back to the hill from before. Not far away, Yu Xian was teaching the young woman and the burly man the complete Vajra esoteric art. The other 8 second-generation disciples were still practicing the Vajra esoteric art. Lu Kuan looked at Li Qianfeng's hesitant expression and said, "Qianfeng, I know what you want to say. You can tell them. If you want, you can leave with us." Li Qianfeng was pleasantly surprised. "Grandmaster, you're willing to accept them?" Lu Kuan shook his head and said, "You also know that although my body refining pavilion is different from the traditional immortal cultivation sects without spirit roots, they still can't cultivate. I can't accept them, but I can provide them with a safe place, and I can even guide them in their cultivation so that they can reach the middle stage of the Qi refining realm." Although Li Qianfeng felt that it was a pity that these people couldn't cultivate, Lu Kuan's actions completely guaranteed their lives. Otherwise, if they continued to stay here, they might be captured by the 9 Spectres sect. Thus, Li Qianfeng excitedly pulled his 3rd sister and 4th brother and walked towards the group of resting martial practitioners. At this moment, Zhao Qingtian and Pan Yin were standing beside Lu Kuan. Pan Yin didn't reveal any surprise and felt that his master should do this. However, Zhao Qingtian's heart stirred, and he suddenly thought of a possibility. He asked, "Master, could it be that you've taken a fancy to these martial practitioners for their use in the secular world?" Lu Kuan smiled and turned towards Yu Xian and the others who were guiding the 2nd-generation disciples. He didn't answer Zhao Qingtian's question and instead asked, "Qingtian, you've secretly observed the recruitment of so many immortal cultivation sects. You should know that these people are the main source of immortal cultivation disciples, right? Zhao Qingtian nodded and said, in the 10 great sects, or immortal cultivation sects, generally choose from the bloodlines of immortal cultivation clans and their disciples. Because spirit roots are very rare, and the probability of spirit roots appearing in the descendants of immortal cultivators is very high. Even the descendants with top aptitudes may appear, so immortal cultivation sects are usually tied together with immortal cultivation clans. At this moment, Lu Kuan just happened to walk to the top of the hill and looked at the second-generation disciples who were still cultivating. He nodded and said, although we body cultivators also need spirit roots, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the physique and the will to cultivate. We'll personally come out to select these second-generation disciples. We can't do this for every generation of disciples in the future. If there's a conflict with the immortal cultivation sect, it'll be troublesome. Zhao Qingtian raised his eyebrows. He seemed to have some ideas. Lu Kuan smiled and said, Qingtian, what do you think about building a martial artist city on the land near the chaotic ocean? A martial artist city. Zhao Qingtian's eyes suddenly lit up. He immediately understood Lu Kuan's meaning. He looked at the 20 or so martial artists who were talking with Li Qianfeng with an excited expression. Master wants to gather all these Vajra arts martial artists. No, it should be said that he wants to gather all the top martial artists. To be able to become powerful martial artists, they must have at least a 3-star physique. Then, in the next generation, or even the generation after that, as long as they have spirit roots, they will be good body cultivators. Lu Kuan looked at the sky. His eyes were full of longing. He said, not only do we gather these people, we also want to build a city that will make the top martial artists of the secular world scramble for. I want to let the martial artists of the secular world know that if they want to cultivate to the true peak and reach the level of immortal cultivators, only the cultivation methods of this city can satisfy them. This way, most of the top martial artists with strong willpower will gather here. Zhao Qingtian suddenly thought of a problem. He asked doubtfully, but Master, there won't be many martial artists with spirit roots. What about those who don't have spirit roots? Lu Kuan laughed and said, my body cultivators complete Vajra arts martial artists. When cultivated to the peak, they won't be any worse than chi refining middle stage cultivators. And if they have some special magic tools, they can even fight chi refining late stage cultivators. Special magic tools? Lu Kuan's eyes were deep and said, Qingtian, do you remember the spirit controlling array I mentioned? Of course I remember. Master also said that this is an array that must be carved on the bones before entering the bone treasure stage. In the past, Martial Uncle Nye was the same as your master. He had hidden spirit roots, but Martial Uncle Nye's talent was outstanding. Together with Martial Uncle Zhu and Martial Uncle Gu, he developed the spirit controlling array. In the end, he even designed the spirit controlling array. Now, with Martial Uncle Qin and my refining technique, after some slight modifications, we can completely refine the spirit controlling array for these people to use. Of course, the spirit controlling array can only be activated by the spirit chi in their bodies. The power of the spirit controlling array will be much weaker than body cultivators who have condensed their mana and entered the muscle refining stage. Even so, with the spirit controlling array combined with the power of the body, these top martial artists can still fight chi refining late-stage cultivators if 2 or 3 of them work together. Zhao Qingtian murmured, mortal cultivators against immortal cultivators. How attractive is this to martial artists? Lu Kuan patted this head disciple's shoulder and said seriously, after the second-generation disciple recruitment is complete, we'll go back and have a good discussion. Although immortal cultivators don't pay attention to the matters of the secular world, they know that there are techniques that can allow mortals to resist immortal cultivators. Even if they resist the lowest level chi refining stage cultivators, it will still attract some people's attention. You should also think carefully about how we should arrange it. It will not only allow us to have an endless supply of disciples, but also guarantee that we won't be discovered by other immortal cultivators. Chapter 533. Wei Kingdom, Luzhou. Near the boundless Luyang mountain range, there was a bustling city. In the eyes of the people of Luzhou, this flourishing southwestern city was second only to the state capital. This was Huayuan City. At this moment, on the bustling streets of the southern city district, there were 3 men and women with outstanding temperaments walking slowly on the wide road. Some of the pedestrians around them would subconsciously stay away from them when they saw them. I didn't expect Huayuan City to develop to its current scale in 100 years. If it weren't for the fact that the geographical location hasn't changed, I would have thought that we've gone to the wrong place. The burly man in the lead side. Yes, it seems to be twice as big as before. The young man with dashing brows and starry eyes next to him agreed, but he looked a little absent-minded. On the other side, the beautiful woman who looked similar to the young man also looked uneasy. These 3 people were Lu Kuan and the Zhao siblings who had passed through Qingzhou from Songzhou to Luzhou. Seeing the expressions of these 2 disciples, Lu Kuan's expression was a little bleak. Sigh. Roughly 100 years have passed. Although the Iron Fist clan still exists, Sect Master Zhao Yuanji is definitely no longer there, Zhao Qingtian's side. Master, actually, when we went to the Yang clan, Father had already guessed the path we would take in the future, but his wish was to bring glory to the Zhao family. If Father knew that we had become Foundation establishment cultivators, he would be very gratified. The only thing I feel guilty about is that I didn't accompany him in his last days. When Zhao Qingtian was carrying out the Yang clan's mission, he would occasionally return home once or twice. However, later on, the battle at the Shangqing clan and the destruction of the clan were linked together, causing him and Sher Chao to have to go far away. Sher Chao was silent, but there were some tears in her eyes. Lu Kuan looked at the 2 disciples and was touched by the scene. He silently patted their shoulders and comforted them. Speaking of which, Sect Master Zhao wants the Zhao family to be strong and prosperous, so you should carry on the family line as soon as possible. Shui, you and Yu Xian should officially become Dao companions. How can I not see the feelings between the 2 of you? Hearing this, Sher Chao's frosty face blushed a rare shade of red. However, she seemed to have thought of something and quickly regained her composure. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent as she said, Master, Junior brother and I have agreed in private that we will only consider this matter after I have avenged Master Wang Ruobing. At this time, Zhao Qingtian's eyes also turned red. He said coldly, this disciple also wants an explanation from that woman. How could Lu Kuan not know who they were talking about? It was the elder of the Miraculous Gate who had infiltrated the Yang clan, the late core formation cultivator Li Weiner. Then, he thought of the woman who used the spirit-devouring technique on him. At the same time, Nie Wufeng's words echoed in his mind. The most important thing is to become stronger. Lu Kuan secretly clenched his fists. With my current strength, I can't escape from a nascent soul cultivator. It's not time yet. After a moment of silence, Lu Kuan spoke again. Actually, this time we came mainly to see if there are any good seedlings in the Iron Fist school. You should know that I left the first 3 layers of the Vajra esoteric art to Schoolmaster Zhao. Now that the Iron Fist school is so powerful, I reckon there are many martial artists who have cultivated to the 3rd layer. If there are suitable martial artists, we can take them in as 2nd-generation disciples. Zhao Qingtian sighed and said, 100 years have passed. I don't know if the current leader of the Iron Fist school is a descendant of my Zhao clan. Lu Kuan said, don't worry. Back then, I only told your father, Zhao Yuanji, the Vajra esoteric arts incantation. With his scheming and deep foresight, he will firmly grasp this technique in his hands. Although you are not in the school, the Zhao clan still has a branch bloodline. If nothing unexpected happens, the Zhao clan should still be in charge. Sher Chao wrinkled her nose and said, but master, we didn't find any information about the Iron Fist School schoolmaster. We only know that he has the title of Tyrant Fist and lives in seclusion. It's said that even in the school, not many people have seen him. Lu Kuan smiled and said, "The Iron Fist School is up ahead. Let's go in and take a look." As they spoke, they had already walked through the bustling street. After turning the corner, they arrived at the Iron Fist School. The current Iron Fist School was very different from before. Just the door outside had been renovated. The original arched door had become even larger. It was made of precious marble, which could withstand the erosion of time. The three words, Iron Fist School, on the arched door were made of pure gold. If one didn't have sufficient strength, an ordinary school wouldn't do such a thing that would attract the envy of others. However, the Iron Fist School was different. Just the 8 muscular men at the door, who were still shirtless in the winter, were not people that ordinary martial artists could provoke. With Lu Kuan's perception, these muscular martial artists were all at the peak of second rate. Using such martial artists to guard the door showed the Iron Fist School's strength in the secular world. According to the information they had gathered, the Iron Fist School could be said to be the strongest school in the southwest part of Lu Province. They had more than 10 super first-rate martial artists, which was not something that other schools could contend against. As the headquarters of the Iron Fist School, to the people of Jianghu, this place was no less dangerous than a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. However, Lu Kuan and the others were immortal cultivators. With the simplest of invisibility techniques, they could walk in effortlessly. The three of them calmly walked into this school, which was very different from 100 years ago. Then, under Lu Kuan's lead, they made many turns and arrived at the deepest part of the bamboo forest. Lu Kuan took a deep breath and said, "In the past, that old devil Murong killed countless seniors who cultivated the Vajra mantra here. Fortunately, this kind of thing won't happen again in the future." After saying that, he and the Zhao siblings nimbly passed through the bamboo forest. The trap set by the mortals was completely exposed to the immortal cultivator's divine sense. Not long after, the three of them appeared in the backyard of the courtyard. They just happened to see an old man who was close to 60 years old and had half a head of white hair sitting cross-legged in the middle. In his arms was a sparkling and translucent stone that emitted a faint spiritual aura. Suddenly, the old man seemed to feel something and open his eyes. With a glance, he saw 3 strangers in the backyard. His pupils dilated, revealing a look of shock and anger. He immediately assumed a defensive posture, but his tone was extremely calm as he said, "Who are you? This Zhao doesn't seem to know you." Lu Kuan made a sound of surprise and said, "Surname Zhao, Qingtian. It seems that I was right. It's still the Zhao family's head." Zhao Qingtian carefully looked at the old man in front of him and said with a frown, "Whether you're from my Zhao family or not, we still have to test your bloodline." The old man heard that they were indifferent to his words, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he became more cautious and carefully observed the 3 strangers. "Hey, what do these people look like?" Staring at the 3 strangers, the old man suddenly felt that they, especially the burly man in the lead, looked somewhat familiar. A light bulb flashed in the old man's mind, and he revealed a look of disbelief as he said, "Grand Elder." Then, his expression changed again. "Impossible. Grand Elder is at least 100 years old. Who are you? How dare you pretend to be my sex, Grand Elder?" After saying that, the old man's figure flashed, and he suddenly appeared in front of Lu Kuan. His hands whistled through the air as he struck toward Lu Kuan's chest. At the same time, his calves tightened, ready to retreat at any time. However, when the old man hit his opponent, he felt as if he had hit cotton. It was as if there was no point to exert force, but a strange force immediately gushed out from the cotton. This force was as unfathomable as the sea and easily pushed him away. Lu Kuan's figure didn't move. Feeling the old man's attack, he said with some surprise, "Back then, I only left behind the 3rd level of the Vajra scripture, but your physical strength has reached the 5th level." Chapter 534. Seeing the old man's expression, Lu Kuan's expression changed. His hands flickered and a portrait suddenly floated out of the room and slowly floated in front of him. It was a lifelike portrait of a tall and sturdy man with a resolute expression. It was Lu Kuan. In addition to Lu Kuan, there was also a handsome and adorable boy and girl in the portrait. They were exactly the same as the Zhao siblings when they were young. It must be known that when Lu Kuan left, he was already at the late stage of qi refining. Coupled with his body refinement cultivation, when his body was in an exuberant state, there was almost no sign of aging. Therefore, his appearance had not changed much in the past 100 years. As for the Zhao siblings, they later focused on cultivating their body refinement technique, and their appearance was fixed in their youth. It could be said that the body refinement technique that Lu Kuan created had the special effect of eternal youth. Ordinary cultivators could at most slow down the aging process. Therefore, when one reached the core formation stage, except for those with special techniques, they would basically have the appearance of an old man. I didn't think that Sect Master Zhao would have left behind a portrait of the three of us. Lu Kuan looked at the lifelike portrait and sighed with emotion. The Zhao siblings' eyes were slightly red. They were extremely moved. Originally, when the old man in the courtyard heard Lu Kuan point out that the Vajra esoteric art was only a third-layer technique, he felt that this person was very likely the legendary Grand Elder who led the Iron Fist sect to metamorphosis. For the sake of the sect's development, Zhao Yuanji had divided the 3 layers of the Vajra esoteric art into 6 layers. Therefore, other than the sect master, no one else knew that the Vajra esoteric art only had 3 layers. Coupled with Lu Kuan's ability to move objects through the air, the old man was even more certain. As the person in charge of the Iron Fist sect, he knew of the existence of cultivators. It was rumored that the Grand Elder of the Iron Fist sect had brought the Zhao family's young master to cultivate. When the old man heard Lu Kuan's words, he realized that the young man and girl in front of him were very similar to the youth that the old sect master had painted. Immediately, his face flushed with excitement as he walked respectfully to Lu Kuan and kowtowed. Junior Zhao Wei greets Grand Elder. He then kowtowed to the Zhao siblings and said, "This unfilial descendant, Zhao Wei, greets the 2 ancestors." The Zhao siblings were stunned. Then they smiled bitterly. If this person was really a descendant of the Zhao family, then according to their age, they were indeed worthy of this title. Zhao Qingtian coughed lightly and said, "Are you a descendant of Uncle Zhao Yuanjia or Uncle Zhao Yuanshu?" When the old man heard this, he replied respectfully, reporting to Patriarch, "Zhao Yuanshu is this junior's great-grandfather." Next, Zhao Qingtian cast a bloodline identification spell and confirmed that the old man named Zhao Wei had the bloodline of the Zhao family. Lu Kuan looked at the respectful sect master and asked curiously, "Little guy, tell me how you improved your physical body. I just observed carefully and found that your Vajra esoterica has reached the peak of the 4th layer, marrow refining. Even the strength of your physical body is not much different from the 5th layer. How'd you do it?" Lu Kuan was really curious. He just used his core formation spiritual sense to detect that this person did not have a spiritual root. With the talent of a mortal, he was able to cultivate to the 5th layer with only the 3rd layer of the Vajra esoterica. Could it be that this person's aptitude was top-notch? When Zhao Wei heard Lu Kuan's words, he replied honestly, reporting to Grand Elder, "This junior was poisoned 20 years ago. Finally, with the help of my son, I used the poison-attracting poison method to force the poison to resist the spiritual energy in my body. I didn't expect that not only did the poison disappear, but the Vajra esoterica also broke through the bottleneck. Later, based on this situation, my son developed a slow-acting poison to supplement the cultivation of a few spirit stones that this junior obtained by chance. Only then did the Vajra esoterica reach its current level of cultivation." After listening to Zhao Wei's description, Lu Kuan's eyes revealed a look of surprise. That's right, the poisons of immortal cultivators are very useful for body cultivators. Then the poisons of the mortal world must have a promoting effect on the Vajra esoterica. Then he said excitedly, "Your son is proficient in the art of refining poisons?" Zhao Wei paused and sighed, Originally, my son Zhao Qiming only liked to be proficient in medical skills. I didn't expect that after that incident, he would continue to study the five poisons technique. Now, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he is proficient in the art of refining poisons. Lu Kuan's expression changed, as if he thought of something. This five poisons technique is related to the five poisons sect? When the old man heard the three words five poisons sect, his face revealed a complicated expression. Sigh, it's really unfortunate for our family. Afterwards, Sect Master Zhao Wei described to Lu Kuan and the others a textbook example of the grudges and grudges of the Jianghu. It turned out that 10 years after Lu Kuan left the Iron Fist School, with the help of the Vajra Esoterica and the Origin Exploding Fist, greatly increased their strength and began an ambitious path of expansion. The Five Poisons sect, which had once given the Iron Fist School enormous pressure, bore the brunt of the attack and was directly destroyed. Only 2 elders escaped. At that time, the Iron Fist School did not know that the people who escaped had taken away the Five Poisons sect's peak Five Poisons technique. In the past, the Five Poisons sect's martial artists were very powerful, so everyone overlooked this peak level method of refining poisons. The remaining elders of the Five Poisons sect learned from this painful experience and decided to cultivate a Poison King. Because as the Iron Fist School expanded, the martial artist's strength would only grow stronger and stronger. If they wanted to take revenge, they could only rely on poisons. However, a high-level poison technique was not so easy to cultivate. The knowledge and experience required was extremely large. It was not until 20 years ago that the true successor of the Five Poisons sect was born, and the Iron Fist School had long since forgotten about this sect that had disappeared for many years. The successor of the Five Poisons sect was a beautiful woman. Under her deliberate arrangements, using her medical knowledge, she met Zhao Wei's son, Zhao Qiming, who was also proficient in medicine. Gradually, Zhao Qiming fell in love and married this woman. Not long after, Zhao Wei, who had just become the sect master, was poisoned. At that time, Zhao Wei's position had not yet stabilized. Suddenly being poisoned caused a commotion in the sect. At the same time, a few of the Iron Fist School's great rivals began to nibble away at the Iron Fist School's outer industries. If Zhao Wei died, the Iron Fist School would suffer great losses due to the internal and external troubles. In the end, Zhao Wei's son, Zhao Qiming, used his superb medical skills to investigate the clues and discovered that the murderer was actually his wife. There was no need to elaborate on the twists and turns in the story. After an intense round of persuasion and questioning, the woman finally cried and told everything. However, after that, she took a strong poison. Although Zhao Qiming was heartbroken, he still forced himself to study the Five Poisons technique left behind by the woman. Soon, he found a method to detoxify his father's poison. He used a type of external poison to absorb all the poison in Zhao Wei's body into the muscles on the surface of his body. Using the spiritual energy from the Vajra mantra, the poison was finally wiped clean. Zhao Wei also relied on the stimulation of the poison to benefit from the disaster. He broke through the third layer of the Vajra mantra, and his power increased greatly. Soon, he stabilized his position in the sect and personally took action, killing several strong enemies. It was at that time that the name Tyrant Fist came to be. Although Zhao Qiming coincidentally saved his father, his wife could only be kept alive by him because the poison she took was too strong. She became a living dead. From then on, Zhao Qiming did not care about the affairs of the world. He immersed himself in his medical and poison techniques in an attempt to awaken his wife. After listening to Zhao Wei's story, Lu Kuan sighed, lamenting the impermanence of the world. He did not expect that the Five Poisons sect, which reigned supreme in martial arts, had hidden top-notch poison techniques and had even endured for so many years before taking action. Chapter 535. After the Zhao siblings heard the story, they immediately developed a good impression of Zhao Qiming. For a person to be so stubborn about love, he was definitely a person who valued friendship and righteousness. Xiao could not help but want to meet this junior as soon as possible. As for Zhao Qingtian, he looked at Lu Kuan and found that other than emotion in his eyes, there was also a look of pleasant surprise. When he thought of this person's poison refining arts, he immediately understood Lu Kuan's thoughts. Thus, Zhao Qingtian said, "Zhao Wei, have Zhao Qiming come see us. My master has something to say to him." Zhao Wei's face revealed some difficulty at first, but he still quickly nodded in response. He circulated the Yuan explosion chi in his body and quickly rushed out of the courtyard. Lu Kuan's spiritual sense followed closely behind, following Zhao Wei all the way to a huge courtyard in a remote corner of the Iron Fist School. There were no guards around the courtyard, and the walls of the courtyard were covered in dark green vines. The vines were covered in sharp barbs that flickered with a black luster. Clearly, they were highly toxic. Even the main gate was covered in poisonous vines. The entire courtyard gave off a lonely and gloomy feeling. Zhao Wei came out of the courtyard and coughed loudly twice before calling out, "Qiming, open the door. Father has urgent matters to discuss with you." After waiting for a while, he found that there was no movement in the room. Zhao Wei seemed to have expected this, so he organized his words and continued to call out. As for Lu Kuan's spiritual sense, he directly probed inside and simply browsed through the various precious spiritual herbs and poisonous herbs of the mortal world. Then he saw a middle-aged man with a face full of stubble, messy hair, and dirty robes. Although he was slovenly dressed, one could tell that he had been a handsome young master when he was young. This man was fiddling with an unknown herb while chewing on something in his mouth. His eyes were slightly narrowed as he carefully savored the thing in his mouth. Lu Kuan's divine sense was surprised to find that although this middle-aged man looked dispirited, his physical strength was not weak at all. He actually had a cultivation of about the 5th level of the Vajra secret art, which was higher than his father, Zhao Wei. Lu Kuan's divine sense continued to explore the area. Soon, he discovered an ice cellar deep below the house. Inside, there was a beautiful young woman with pale skin. She lay quietly in the middle of the ice coffin. Her life aura was very weak. Lu Kuan examined her slightly and discovered that the depths of her internal organs were a little dark. At the same time, her soul was much weaker than that of an ordinary person. Clearly, this was a reason why she had been unconscious for a long time. Just as Lu Kuan was observing, the man above, Zhao Qiming, suddenly showed a trace of joy. He put down the herbs in his hands and quickly rushed outside. That fast movement made it impossible for people to imagine that he was a doctor. Lu Kuan, who had been paying attention to this place with his divine sense, certainly knew why Zhao Qiming was so excited. It was because Zhao Wei had told him that the great elder in the Zhao family's ancestor, who had become immortal cultivators, had come to the sect. With the ability of immortal cultivators, they might be able to save his wife. Therefore, Lu Kuan withdrew his divine sense and made a plan in his heart. After a little while, Zhao Qingtian and the others, who were sitting in the hall of the house, saw a rather dispirited middle-aged man hurriedly rush over. This Zhao Qiming had obviously seen Lu Kuan's portrait. After seeing Lu Kuan in person, he immediately knelt on the ground and kowed out. His expression was somewhat deranged as he said, "Great elder, immortal, this junior earnestly asks you to save Rome." Obviously, this Rome was his wife. Zhao Wei, who was following closely behind, saw that his son didn't understand etiquette and sternly said, "Qiming, don't be rude." Lu Kuan waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter." He slowly walked in front of Zhao Qiming and pressed one hand on his shoulder. He closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Soon, he revealed a surprised expression as if he had made an unexpected discovery. Then Lu Kuan opened his mouth and said, "In fact, most of the poison in your wife's body has already dissipated. The remaining poison has entered the depths of her internal organs. With the methods of mortals, it is indeed difficult to completely remove it." Zhao Qiming was stunned at first, but then he revealed an expression of ecstasy. He was stunned because this great elder was actually able to accurately determine his wife's condition from such a distance. He was happy because this mysterious senior was really a immortal cultivator, just as his father had said. That, with the methods of mortals, meant that his wife might really be saved. Zhao Qiming, who was somewhat emotional, heard Lu Kuan say again, "The remaining poison has been in the body for too long. It is almost fused with her internal organs. A pack of clear spirit powder can remove most of the remaining poison. However, because too much time has passed, your wife's soul has begun to weaken. This is the main reason why she's been unconscious." Zhao Qiming slightly opened his mouth. After all, he was proficient in the art of medicine. He knew that when it involved the soul, it was not something that mortals could solve. He earnestly said, "Great Elder, please enlighten me. Although Qiming is immortal and is nothing to Great Elder, as long as it is something that I can do, I will do it without any hesitation." Lu Kuan returned to his seat and slowly said, "Actually, I returned to the Iron Fist School this time because I wanted to select some disciples with outstanding aptitude to cultivate in the Chu country. At the same time, I wanted to see if there was anyone among the descendants of the Zhao family who had the aptitude for immortal cultivation." He looked at Zhao Qiming in front of him and said rather emotionally, "I didn't expect that there would be someone with spiritual roots in the collateral bloodline of the Zhao family. Moreover, it was a triple attribute spiritual roots." Hearing this, Zhao Wei's old face revealed an excited expression. He was very knowledgeable and had obviously heard of the spiritual roots theory. He trembled and said, "Could it be that Qiming has the aptitude for immortal cultivation and can become an immortal master like Great Elder?" Zhao Qiming, on the other hand, was somewhat confused. However, when he heard his father's words, he immediately thought of something. His eyes lit up and he said, "Great Elder, since I have the aptitude for immortal cultivation, can I help you in exchange for saving my wife?" Lu Kuan lightly patted his storage bag. A sparkling and translucent jade bottle appeared in his hand. Inside was a pile of white powder. He did not remember which cultivator he got it from. Lu Kuan controlled the jade bottle and floated it towards Zhao Qiming. At the same time, he said, "This is the most common antidote in the immortal cultivation world, clear spirit powder. Take it and give it to your wife. As for the method to cure your wife's soul, I can also give it to you. However, you have to promise me one thing." Zhao Qiming carefully took the jade bottle that could save his wife and held it tightly. His face was firm as he said, "What do you want? As long as you save Ronger, even if you want me to die, I will do it." Lu Kuan said indifferently, "Since you are a descendant of the Zhao clan and also have the spiritual roots, I will naturally accept you into the sect. And my request is that apart from cultivating, you have to spend most of your remaining time studying the immortal cultivation world's poison refining methods. You have to refine a poison that meets my requirements." When Zhao Qiming heard this request, his face revealed a confident expression. He said, "Great Elder, if it was other skills, Qiming wouldn't dare to say much. However, this junior believes that this poison technique is one of the best in Jianghu. Although the poison technique of immortal cultivators may be different, Qiming is confident that I can complete it." Lu Kuan nodded and said, "Good. Go and give your wife the clear spirit powder first. I didn't bring the treasure to cure her soul. When we return to the sect, I will give it to you." Zhao Qiming hurriedly nodded and then hurriedly walked out to give his wife the clear spirit powder. This brat is so loyal. He could be considered a good seedling. That's right. Zhao Wei, Qingtian, and I will stay here for a few days. Call back all the experts who cultivate the Vajra esoteric art in the Iron Fist School. I will screen them. You just told them that. Chapter 536. Recently, the disciples of the Iron Fist School were very excited because all the masters under the age of 40 had been summoned back by the schoolmaster. More than 20 supermasters had gathered at the Iron Fist School's headquarters. The disciples standing guard in the school all puffed out their chests and braced themselves. If they were chosen by the masters in the school, they might have a meteoric rise. They might even be taught the top Vajra art. If the other schools knew that there were so many top warriors, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace and would want to leave the southwest area of Lu Province. Ordinary schools only had 3 or 4 super warriors, but the Iron Fist school had 5 or 6 times more. It would be a matter of minutes for them to destroy the school. With so many people gathered, it was as if they were going to slaughter a certain school. Only the higher-ups of the Iron Fist school knew what was really happening in the school. More than 20 top warriors and the managers discussed in the Iron Fist school's meeting hall for a full day and night before hurriedly leaving. In the end, the Iron Fist school had a change in personnel, and the entire school's sphere of influence was reorganized. Many ordinary disciples were quite disappointed because the seniors and masters in the school came and went in a hurry. They did not pay attention to anyone at all. They all looked excited as if something good had happened. However, these disciples did not know that more than half of the superclass martial artists, the sect leader, the young sect master who was proficient in medicine and poison and was revered by the ordinary disciples, and even a small portion of the Zhao family's disciples were gathered in the deepest courtyard. These people were full of excitement as they boarded 5 shining flying boats. Under the cover of magic, they quietly rose into the sky and left Huayuan City. The current Lu province's immortal cultivation world was the world of the miraculous gate. Lu Kuan did not need to take the risk to find the warriors who had joined the miraculous gate. Fortunately, the Zhao family of the Iron Fist school had the bloodline of immortal cultivators. In addition to Zhao Qiming, there was a woman named Zhao Yu who also had a spiritual root. Although she was a collateral descendant of the Zhao family and was born of a concubine, she worked hard and practiced martial arts crazily. Relying on the sect's contribution points, he went from being an unremarkable bastard to becoming the hall master of the Iron Fist school at the age of 30. After receiving the Vajra art, he even cultivated it to the 2nd level. In that case, Lu Kuan had obtained 2 second-generation disciples in Lu State, which had already exceeded his expectations. After all, he had searched through all the sects in Qing State, big and small, and only found 2 warriors who met the requirements. This time at the Iron Fist school, besides the people from the Zhao family, there were also more than 10 top martial artists from the Iron Fist school who were willing to follow Lu Kuan to the Chu country to establish a powerful martial artist city. These 10 or so people were all martial artists who yearned for a higher realm of martial arts. Some of them even had battle prowess close to Zhao Wei's. Their goal in life was to reach the pinnacle of a mortal martial artist, and Lu Kuan was able to improve their strength to the point that they could even reach the fighting strength of immortal cultivators. Although it was the lowest level of immortal cultivators, it still made them wild with joy. As for the remaining people of the Iron Fist school, most of them coveted the power of the Iron Fist school. They practiced martial arts for better enjoyment. Now that their competitors and even the sect master had left, they were all eager to fight for a higher position in the remaining time. Why would they care about the realm of martial artists? In the end, Lu Kuan and the others majestically left Lu province with more than 30 people and headed for Zhong province. Previously, after the few of them had swept through the Qingzhou martial artists together, they had split into 2 groups. Yu Xian and Xiao Yun went directly to the southern part of the Central Plains. Due to the battle of the Shangqing sect, the territory of the Central Plains had been divided up by various large sections. There were several sects stationed here, and they were also recruiting disciples from outside. As for the northern part of Zhong province, Lu Kuan did not plan to go there. According to the information he had found, that was now the territory of the Miraculous Gate and the Qi Kingdom's blood-refining sect. It was better to be cautious. Just like that, Lu Kuan and the others stayed in Zhong province for more than a month. In the end, they took in 4 second-generation disciples. Zhao Qingtian walked around the secular city and took in 7 or 8 top mortal martial artists. In this way, they swept through the Chu and Wei kingdoms and took in a total of 19 suitable second-generation disciples. It was still far from the 25 that Lu Kuan had planned. However, there was no other way. Although they could find suitable disciples using this method, it took too much time and energy. It also depended on luck. This result made Lu Kuan even more determined to build a martial artist city. As long as this city became a holy land for mortal martial artists, then the top martial artists of the secular world would come. When the time came, The next generation of disciples would only need to pick people with spirit roots in the city. It would be much more efficient. Out of the 19 second-generation disciples and close to 60 mortal warriors, Lu Kuan and company brought a total of 80 people back. They had to control a flying boat Dharma artifact each, so they had to bring a total of 6 flying boats. This made Lu Kuan miss the Yang clan's cloud-treading boat. The kind of large flying boat could accommodate 80 people without being crowded. Moreover, the cloud-treading boat had its own concealment array. When flying in the sky, it would not be easy for ordinary cultivators to discover it. The flying boat they were on now, including the Silver Dragon Spirit Shuttle, only had a few simple concealment arrays. Chi refining cultivators would be fine, but for Foundation establishment cultivators, it was not very effective. However, with Lu Kuan's divine sense at the peak of the middle core formation stage, no Foundation establishment cultivator would dare to offend them. Just like that, they smoothly passed through the Tsang province and entered the land of death without stopping. Lu Kuan stood at the top of the flying boat and felt the cold yin qi in the land of death. He could not help but think of the scene when he dealt with Wang Shitong. At that time, if Senior Ling's zombie body didn't have a trace of consciousness and allowed the cold yin qi to help me break through to the great circle of muscle refining, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to condense the Thunder Seal and use my breakthrough to resist the Thunderfall technique and kill Wang Shitong. He revealed a pensive expression and pondered in his heart. This cold yin qi also has a stimulating effect on body cultivators. The high-quality cold yin qi even allowed me to break through a small bottleneck when I was recultivating. It can be seen how miraculous it is. Even if the weak cold yin qi was used by the people of the 9 Underworld sect, it could still allow Li Qianfeng and the others to break through their bottlenecks. But I can't take the entire land of death with me. Even if I use a jade bottle to collect the cold yin qi, I won't be able to take much. If that's the case, I won't be able to use it to speed up body refinement. Just as Lu Kuan was pondering, 2 faintly discernible divine senses suddenly probed his flying boat. Feeling the strength of these 2 divine senses, Lu Kuan coldly snorted and mercilessly collided with them with a powerful divine sense close to the late core formation stage. Immediately after, the 2 early core formation stage divine senses let out a cry of surprise and quickly retreated. It must be known that Lu Kuan's divine sense was abnormally condensed under the nourishment of the wooden bracelet that was suspected to be made from demon soul wood. This unexpected attack directly caused the other party to suffer a hidden loss. Fellow Taoist, how should I address you? I am Ni Shao from the 9 Underworld sect. Please forgive my 2 fellow disciples for offending you. Just as Lu Kuan was about to give chase, another divine sense floated over. This one was also at the peak of the mid-core formation stage, causing Lu Kuan to tremble slightly. Forget about the form of address. I'm a cultivator from the state of Chu. I am migrating with my clansmen. Since you are fellow Taoists from the 9 Underworld sect, then forget it. Farewell. Lu Kuan coldly threw out a sentence and withdrew his divine sense. Chapter 537. The 3 of them quietly sensed their surroundings. After confirming that the mysterious male cultivator was more than 10 kilometers away, the pale-faced man revealed an unwilling expression and said, "Senior Marshal Brother and I, are we just going to let it go like this?" His cultivation level is only on par with Senior Marshal Brothers. He definitely won't be a match for the 3 of us. The youth named Ni Shao said in a deep voice, "Junior Marshal Brother Huang, we're here to look for bronze-armored corpses, not to become enemies with a strange core formation cultivator. There were many mortals on that person's flying boat. It should be as he said. He's a mid-core formation cultivator who came to migrate our clansmen. Perhaps he's a cultivator from the 10 great sects of Chu." The other middle-aged woman expressionlessly said, "Senior Marshal Brother is right. Our goal this time is to find bronze-armored corpses. It's better not to complicate matters." The woman's facial muscles stiffened as she spoke. Coupled with her pale face, she looked like a human-shaped zombie. And I Shao looked at the woman and sighed. Junior Marshal Sister Yao, although the corpse refining technique left behind by Junior Marshal Brother Wang is very exquisite, it's still incomplete. The risk is not small. The middle-aged woman indifferently said, Senior Marshal Brother and I, don't worry. Junior Marshal Sister and Senior Marshal Brother Wang cultivate very differently. Senior Marshal Brother Wang was forced to use that method because his cultivation level dropped. In the end, he became a refined corpse. If he wasn't injured, his original plan would have been to walk the orthodox path of refining corpses and rush to the mid-core formation stage in one go. Junior Marshal Sister is currently cultivating the method developed by Senior Marshal Brother Wang. As long as Junior Marshal Sister transforms all of her magic power into the Yin attribute, her magic power will be comparable to that of a foreign magic power. Her strength will greatly increase, and she might even be able to break through the bottleneck. And I Shao shook his head. He couldn't help but recall the scene before Wang Shitong entered the land of death. At that time, Wang Shitong was heavily injured and dropped to the foundation establishment stage. He solemnly handed over the corpse refining technique he developed to Enai Shao, hoping that Enai Shao would give this secret technique to his infatuated Junior Marshal Sister Yao after his death. Although Enai Zhao's relationship with Wang Shitong wasn't good, they were still from the same sect, so he agreed. This was also because his main cultivation method had nothing to do with refining corpses, so when he received the secret technique, he only looked at it briefly and didn't study it in depth. It was also at that time that Enai Shao found out that Wang Shitong wanted to cultivate the corpse refinement body and planned to enter the core formation stage from another path. Unfortunately, according to their investigation, this Junior Marshal Brother Wang was killed by a Foundation Establishment cultivator from the Yang clan. Now that Enai Shao heard his Junior Marshal Sister Yao's tone, he clearly knew that the reason Wang Shitong didn't want to see him was because of his refined corpse body. As for the woman surnamed Yao, her cultivation method was Yin type, so she could use the corpse refining secret technique left behind by Wang Shitong to assist her in her cultivation. As long as he uses this technique to completely convert the element of his spiritual energy into the element of Yin, he will have a very high chance of breaking through the bottleneck of the early stage of the completion stage and entering the middle stage of the completion stage. His overall strength will also improve. And I Shao thought for a moment and said, Junior Marshal Sister, although I'm not proficient in refining corpses, I know that the corpse core of a copper-armored corpse isn't that easy to absorb. You have to think carefully. The middle-aged woman's eyes revealed a trace of anger as she said, Of course, Junior Marshal Sister knows this. Originally, I planned to follow Senior Marshal Brother Wang's method and use the bodies of those martial artists to refine corpses. Then, I'll refine these Foundation Establishment corpses to create corpse pearls. Absorbing corpse pearls created this way will have no side effects. She gritted her teeth and said, But I don't know which guy killed my group of mortals, causing a large amount of corpse refining materials to be missing. In the short term, I won't be able to refine corpse pearls, so I can only set my sights on the copper-armored corpse core. And I Shao nodded and said, Since Junior Marshal Sister knows the risks, then that's good. It just so happens that the sect's disciples found traces of a newly advanced copper-armored corpse. Otherwise, I would have advised Junior Marshal Sister to use the safer method. The middle-aged woman said, I'll have to trouble Senior Marshal Brothers this time. After this, Junior Marshal Sister will give each of you a bottle of Yin Spirit pills as a reward. And I Shao was fine, but when the other core formation cultivator surnamed Huang heard the words Yin Spirit pills, his face revealed a trace of fervor. He hastily said, Senior Marshal Brother and I, Junior Marshal Sister Yao, let's hurry and find them. If other core formation cultivators discover the copper-armored corpse, it won't be good. Soon after, Enai Shao, who was in the lead, took out a formation plate and cast a spell. The three of them identified a direction and shot off. In the air about 30 kilometers away from the three of them, Lu Kuan listened to Shao Jin's recount on his shoulder and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. These three people from the Nine Spectres sect reminded me that I can't bring back the Een spirit chi, but I can definitely bring back the copper-armored corpse. If it really doesn't work, I'll have to get my hands on the corpse core filled with Een spirit chi. With the copper-armored corpse's level, it might be of great use to Qing Tian and the others. Then, Lu Kuan sneered in his heart. I didn't expect that female cultivator to be Wang Shirtong's old flame and also the person behind the scenes who refined martial artists into corpses. I might as well take care of it this time. Then, Lu Kuan pondered for a while and instructed Zhao Qingtian and the others to bring the others back to Tsang province and wait for him. The land of death stretched for over 1,000 kilometers and couldn't be traversed in a short period of time. Furthermore, Lu Kuan was definitely going to fight with the three Nine Spectres sect cultivators. He didn't want any accidents to happen to these people. The Nine Spectres sect had 3 core formation cultivators entering the land of death. Thus, the Tsang province that was close to the land of death was actually the safest place. With Zhao Qingtian and the other strength that was comparable to the great circle of Foundation establishment, he was more at ease. Very quickly, everyone squeezed onto the 5 flying boats and flew in the opposite direction. Under Xiao Jin's instructions, Lu Kuan followed the 3 core formation cultivators from the Nine Spectres sect from afar. After entering the ranks of the 4th grade demonic beast, Xiao Jin's spirit ear ability had improved a step further. Its detection range was far greater than the range of a normal core formation cultivator's divine sense. In addition, after Lu Kuan entered the core formation stage, the Imperial Lightning escape technique that he released with his powerful physical body became even more marvelous. He was completely able to follow these people with ease. Just like that, more than half a day passed. Lu Kuan discovered that the 3 core formation cultivators of the Nine Spectres sect had finally stopped at the famous one-line sky in the land of death. Could it be that the newly promoted bronze-armored corpse is in this one-line sky? Just as this question appeared in Lu Kuan's mind, Xiao Jin began to squeak. It said that it heard the sounds of fighting coming from the one-line sky. Furthermore, it also felt that the nearby Yin Qi was somewhat surging. However, Lu Kuan frowned. They made their moves so quickly. Even if this bronze-armored corpse has just been promoted, its strength can't be considered weak. Even if they discovered it, it's impossible for them to directly make their move without making some preparations. Could it be? Lu Kuan faintly thought of a certain possibility. His heart moved, and he kept Xiao Jin into the spirit beast pouch. Relying on the profound Fa Li of the core formation stage, he released a concealment spell on himself. However, he didn't use the methods of a body cultivator to conceal his Fa Li. Chapter 538. Many immortal cultivators called the energy of the land of death the cold Een force. Some people also called it the energy of death because the cold Een force was the necessary energy in the bodies of the creatures here. Whether it was zombies or some mutated monsters, their bodies were full of cold Een force. The one-line sky was one of the first secret places where the cold Een force broke out. The cold Een force here was extremely rich, but because it was full of various ancient restrictions, many powerful mutated monsters and zombies lurked nearby. On this day, the sound of fighting faintly came from the one-line sky, causing the cold Een force in the nearby dozens of miles to surge. The powerful aura occasionally revealed made the nearby creatures feel a little scared. Outside the one-line sky, Lu Kuan, who had cast the invisibility spell on himself, was about 10 feet above the ground. He slowly flew toward the dangerous place that he had shuttled through before. His face was serious, and his eyes emitted a faint golden light. He carefully observed the differences in the surroundings. Lu Kuan activated the golden eye ability. Obviously, he was exploring something. Sure enough, as he went deeper, he finally found some strange little things. This was a pile of gray hair that looked like wool, quietly suspended in the air. If he didn't use the golden eye ability carefully, he wouldn't care about such little things at all. These hairs exuded extremely subtle spiritual power fluctuations, which were quite similar to the cold force here. If Lu Kuan's golden eye ability hadn't improved a lot with the strengthening of his spiritual sense, it would be difficult to find a trace of spiritual power. As he got closer, the hairs started to bend. Lu Kuan's heart moved. He had all the spiritual power in his body and his bones. These hairs returned to their original state, which made him confirm some speculation in his heart. He continued to float forward, emitting his spiritual power again, and covered it with the invisibility spell. After about 10 miles into the one-line sky, what appeared in front of him was a rich lavender mist. This mist seemed to be repelled by the cold force around. The two squeezed each other, causing the cold force fluctuations. Strangely, there were fierce, fighting sounds coming from the mist. Seeing this scene, Lu Kuan sneered in his heart, but his face showed surprise. At this moment, a burst of turbulent fluctuations came from behind him. A claw-like weapon and a cone-shaped magic weapon exuding a cold aura appeared out of thin air and attacked his back. Lu Kuan's eyes revealed a look of panic. He immediately turned around and summoned 2 purplish-black Thunderball Dharma artifacts. They turned into watermelon-sized Dharma artifacts and blocked the 2 Dharma artifacts that had ambushed him. Clang! The 2 Thunderballs were quite powerful. Lightning flashed on them, but they still lacked some power. They could only hold on for a while before they were forced back by the 2 magic treasures. As for Lu Kuan, he subconsciously retreated. Suddenly, from within the lavender mist, a thick greatsword flashing with lightning shot out. However, the lightning aura it contained was much stronger than Lu Kuan's Thunderball. When Lu Kuan felt the power of the giant sword, his expression became extremely frightened. He couldn't care less about the 2 magic treasures that were attacking the Thunderball. With a flash of light, a thick round shield appeared in his hand. He turned around and used the shield to block the giant sword. Bam! This shield, which seemed to have extremely strong defensive power, only lasted for a breath of time before it was shattered into pieces by the giant sword. The lightning on the giant sword exploded at the same time and bombarded Lu Kuan's magic power barrier. Lu Kuan let out a painful scream. Then, a vigorous power of blood qi emerged from his body, and surging lightning erupted from his body. At this moment, the 2 magic treasures had completely sent the Thunderball flying. The remaining power of the core formation stage magic treasure bombarded Lu Kuan's protective spiritual light. However, it was then repelled by the lightning that erupted from his body. A resentful voice came from Lu Kuan's mouth. 9 Spectres sect. I, Kuan, will remember this. Then, with the sound of a thunderclap, Lu Kuan, who had transformed into a human-shaped Thunderball, was like a real bolt of lightning. His speed almost reached the speed of a late core formation stage cultivator. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the gray, hazy air. Not long after, the 2 magic treasures that attacked Lu Kuan returned and entered the bodies of a man and a woman. They were the 9 Spectres sex man, surnamed Huang, and woman, surnamed Yao. As for the giant sword surrounded by purple lightning, it appeared in front of a young man. This person was the leader of the 9 Spectres sex middle core formation stage, Cultivator, and I Shao. He looked at the disappearing Lu Kuan and clicked his tongue in wonder. I didn't think that this person was also a lightning attribute cultivator. However, he seems to have just formed his core not long ago. His magic power is ordinary, and he doesn't even have a magic treasure. The man surnamed Huang revealed a relieved expression and said, "Previously, I was injured by this guy's divine sense. I didn't think that he would be strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. If I had known, I would have made my move." And I Shao shook his head and said, "You saw it too." Although the escape technique he used was slightly weaker than the blood escape technique, it wasn't something we could easily catch up to. Furthermore, his divine sense wasn't weak. If he had a suitable magic treasure, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to injure him so easily. The woman surnamed Yao asked, "Senior Marshal Brother and I, although our magic treasures struck him, they didn't have much power remaining. They might not have been able to break through his barrier. Senior Marshal Brother, how was your attack? And I Shao proudly said, that guy only used a fake magic treasure shield. Although it blocked some of the power of my Thunder God sword, the remaining power within it was completely unleashed. The power of lightning had already entered his body. Even if he was also a lightning attribute cultivator with my magic power at the peak of the middle core formation stage, it wasn't something he could withstand. That attack had already heavily injured him. The woman surnamed Yao recalled the scene from before and stiffly nodded. That should be the case. Otherwise, that guy wouldn't have decisively used a life-saving escape technique. I felt a burst of chi and blood energy. Clearly, that escape technique consumed a lot of blood essence. And I Shao smiled and said, it's all thanks to Junior Marshal's sister using the corpse refining silk that we were able to sense the aura of that cultivator's magic power. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known that this guy was actually following us from afar. If he had appeared while we were fighting the copper-armored corpse, then we would have been in trouble. The woman surnamed Yao expressionlessly said, that's what Junior Marshal's sister should do. However, when that guy used his escape technique to escape, he destroyed the pile of corpse threads outside the one-line sky. There aren't many corpse threads left on my body. And I Shao withdrew the huge sword in front of him and said, don't worry. That guy was heavily injured and didn't have enough time to heal. It's impossible for him to follow us. We'll be dealing with the copper-armored corpse next. We just need to place the last batch of corpse threads nearby. With that said, he floated forward and muttered an incantation. Not long after, 3 faint purple formation plates floated out from the gray mist in front of him. They emitted a slight lightning attribute aura, and the mist gradually dissipated. Junior Marshal Brother Huang, you should also remove your formation. Just then, it was thanks to your illusion formation that not only lured that guy over, it also isolated the fluctuations of our battle from the inside of the one-line sky. The man surnamed Huang modestly said, the sounds of the battle were relatively simple. However, the fluctuations of the Coldine energy were all thanks to Senior Marshal Brother's lightning formation. Otherwise, that guy wouldn't have been fooled. And I Shao revealed a trace of a confident smile. As the number 1 core formation cultivator in the 9 Spectres sect, it was not only because of his cultivation, but also because of his identity as a lightning attribute cultivator. It must be known that the majority of the 9 Spectres sect's cultivators cultivated Een attribute techniques and were almost completely restrained by his lightning attribute. The reason why his Junior Marshal sister Yao invited him was because lightning attribute techniques were extremely destructive against zombies. It was also for this reason that Enai Shao wasn't worried that his Junior Marshal sister Yao would threaten his position after she advanced to mid-core formation stage. Chapter 539. After Enai Shao saw that the formation had been removed, he took out a tracking formation plate and formed a hand seal to continue casting the technique. This formation plate was made by the woman surnamed Yao. She used the hair of a bronze-armored corpse obtained by a disciple of her sect and a secret corpse refining technique to create it. However, this tracking technique was much less effective when used with her cultivation base. Thus, she gave it to Enai Shao to use. Her Senior Marshal Brother's magic power and spiritual sense were incomparably profound, so he didn't disappoint her. Along the way, he finally confirmed that the bronze-armored corpse was in the depths of the one-line sky. After casting the technique, Enai Shao looked towards the dusky depths of the one-line sky and said, not bad. Although the light this time is somewhat unstable, its location is quite accurate. It's about 100 kilometers away. The man surnamed Huang quickly said, then let's hurry and set off. It was no wonder that he was anxious. Junior Marshal's sister Yao, who was originally at the bottom of the list, was about to enter mid-core formation stage, while he was still some distance away from the peak of early core formation stage. This time, it was rare that Junior Marshal's sister Yao was willing to take out Een spirit pills. These were pills that were greatly beneficial to his cultivation. There were more than 10 pills in a bottle, which could save him a lot of cultivation time. Hearing the man surnamed Huang's urging, and I Shao slightly frowned and said, Junior Marshal Brother Huang, don't be anxious. Have you ever thought about why the bronze-armored corpse is in the one-line sky? The man surnamed Huang was stunned and said, Isn't it because of the dense energy here? And I Shao said meaningfully, Don't forget that Junior Marshal Brother Huang had a deep understanding of zombies. In the end, although he took down the bronze-armored corpse, he was also seriously injured, which allowed Ling Yutong to take advantage of the situation. From this, it can be seen that the bronze-armored corpse is difficult to deal with. The man surnamed Huang's expression slightly changed. As a cultivator of the same generation as Wang Shitong, he naturally knew of Senior Marshal Brother Wang's strength. Senior Marshal Brother Wang was even more powerful than him now. If the bronze-armored corpse could seriously injure Senior Marshal Brother Wang, it meant that he would most likely be at a disadvantage if he were to face it alone. Seeing N.I. Shao so cautious, the woman surnamed Yao slowly said, The bronze-armored corpse, as an existence on the same level as core formation stage cultivators, is indeed extraordinary. Its physical defense is even stronger than that of ordinary grade 5 demon beasts. It can even withstand magic treasures. In addition, the venom on the corpse claws will also contaminate our magical equipment. If we don't have the ability to restrain it, the magical equipment won't be able to unleash its full power under the influence of the corpse poison. The scariest thing about bronze-armored corpses is their short-range, explosive speed. If we cultivators were to fight them at close range, it would be very troublesome. Not only would it be difficult to hit them with magical treasures, it would be very difficult to counterattack in time if they attacked us at close range. Fortunately, these bronze-armored corpses have just advanced and are only at the elementary level. Their attack power is much weaker than magical equipment. We should focus on defense, so we should be relatively safe. The ones with truly powerful attack power are the bronze-armored corpses above the middle level. And I Shao looked at the dusky, one-line sky in front of him, and then looked at the sky and the ancient restrictions on the stone walls on both sides. He said meaningfully, Don't tell me you didn't notice that this one-line sky has a very obvious advantage for the bronze-armored corpses. When the man surnamed Huang thought of what his junior sister had said about the copper-armored corpse's extremely fast short-range speed, he couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Yes, if the speed of the bronze-armored corpses was really that fast, they would indeed be in trouble. Moreover, in this one-line sky, full of energy, the bronze-armored corpses would be like fish in water. And I Shao said, It can be seen that the bronze-armored corpses have extremely high intelligence. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen to recuperate in the one-line sky. If we want to easily deal with them, we must not underestimate them. After we find their location, we must use our most powerful attack to kill them in one strike and not give them a chance to react. Seeing the other two nodding, and I Shao said, I'll have to trouble junior sister to use that secret technique. Although there's a distance of nearly 50 kilometers, it's still best to be careful to avoid alerting the enemy. The woman surnamed Yao nodded. Then, her body emitted a faint black spirit light. Her hands formed a complicated seal. Gradually, the cold energy in the surroundings seemed to be attracted and turned into 3 gray shields, one after the other, enveloping them within. After she finished casting the technique, she looked at the egg-like shields and sighed. It's a pity that junior sister's magic power isn't pure enough. According to senior brother Wang's speculation, if this armor technique is used with the energy of a late core formation stage cultivator, it can even form a kind of close-fitting armor. The defensive power of this armor is extremely high. It's an excellent defensive technique against the bronze-armored corpses. And I Shao carefully sensed the gray shields and smiled. Once junior sister's strength increases, you'll be able to use this armor technique sooner or later. For us, this gray shield is enough. It can fuse our aura with the surrounding energy. Unless we attack, the bronze-armored corpses won't be able to discover us. All right, let's hurry and set off. Finished speaking, The three of them slowly flew towards the depths of the one-line sky. After advancing about 50 kilometers, their expressions suddenly changed. This was because their spiritual sense discovered that about 5 kilometers ahead of them, there were many rocks of different sizes, forming a stone forest in the one-line sky. What surprised them was that their core formation stage spiritual sense was blocked by something and couldn't penetrate the stone forest. The three of them glanced at each other and increased their vigilance as they continued forward. Gradually, a three-dimensional stone forest formed by countless strange rocks appeared before their eyes. The reason it was three-dimensional was because there were a large number of rocks floating in the air. The man surnamed Huang muttered, "Strange, I don't remember there being a stone forest in the one-line sky." And Xiao raised his head and looked around. His expression changed as he said, "Look at the stone walls on both sides." The other two looked over and couldn't help but exclaim, "What's with the stone walls? Why are the stone walls caved in? How is that possible?" The stone walls of the one-line sky are protected by ancient restrictions. Even a nascent soul stage cultivator would find it difficult to break through. They saw that the stone walls on both sides were caved in from where they were standing, as if they were shattered by some kind of powerful force. At this moment, the woman surnamed Yao suddenly sensed something. She looked at the stone forest and said with a strange tone, "Senior Marshal brothers, Junior sister has already sensed the aura of the bronze-armored corpses. They're about 5 or 6 kilometers ahead." And Xiao raised his eyebrows and said, "Junior sister didn't sense wrongly, right? According to the tracking spell, there should still be quite a distance." The woman surnamed Yao shook her head stiffly and said, "At such a close distance, Junior sister's half-transformed attribute magic power has clearly sensed it. It can't be wrong." Hearing this, Enai Zhao's expression became dignified. The magic power in his body circulated and he formed a certain seal. A water ball, emitting a faint purple light, appeared in front of him out of thin air. Immediately after, it changed into a thick mist and drifted towards the stone forest in front of them. This mist advanced about 10 meters in the stone forest. It seemed to have encountered an invisible barrier between two huge rocks and split into two. Seeing this scene, the man surnamed Huang turned pale with fright and said, "Isn't this the restriction in the sky above the one-line sky? How could it appear in the stone forest?" And Xiao remained silent and carefully sensed the mist he released. It's indeed an ancient restriction. It should have misled the tracking spell. From the surrounding scene, this stone forest is likely produced after the stone walls on both sides collapsed. The ancient restriction on the stone walls was also brought out by these stones, forming the scene before us. Then he seemed to have thought of something, and his face revealed an excited expression. The ancient restriction on the stone walls has been broken. In other words, we can enter the stone walls on both sides? Chapter 540. The man surnamed Huang also said excitedly, "Senior Marshal brother and I, the restriction on this one-line sky is very powerful." Marshal Uncle also came to check it before. He said that even a nascent soul cultivator would have a hard time breaking it. But now, this place has been destroyed. There should be a change inside the restriction. It could be that the formation patterns controlling the restriction have aged, or it could be that it has been attacked by the Coldine force. Enai Zhao's eyes flashed with excitement. Since the restriction has been opened, it means that we can enter this strange stone wall. It was no wonder that they were so excited. The land of death appeared very early. All the things left behind from ancient times had already been plundered clean by cultivators. It was said that some of the top secret techniques of the Heavenly Sword sect were found in the restriction of the land of death. Since ancient times, there were only a few places that had not been thoroughly explored by cultivators. One of them was the stone wall of this one-line sky. This one-line sky seemed to have been split open by a sword. The stone walls on both sides were protected by a terrifying restriction. There was no way to go deep inside, so no one had explored it. Now that they found that the restriction that even nascent soul cultivators were helpless against had been broken, How could they not know that their opportunity had arrived? The stone wall that had not been explored for countless years was exposed in front of them. It was very likely that the cave of ancient cultivators, medicinal pills, magic treasures, secret techniques, and so on were hidden inside. Thinking of this, an eye shout quickly formed a hand seal. 10 purple water balls appeared around him and turned into a dense mist, floating towards the stone walls on both sides. Buzz. The mist on the left seemed to have touched something. It was hit by a silver light and instantly turned into nothingness. The mist on the right encountered an invisible restriction and was unable to move forward. Next, he tried a few more spells and shook his head. The restriction on the stone walls on both sides is even more chaotic. It is impossible to get close. Then he looked at the stone forest in front and frowned. It seems that we can only go through this stone forest. There might be a gap in the restriction that can let us enter the stone wall. The man surnamed Huang nodded, and his eyes flashed with excitement. If he could find some medicinal pills and magic treasures this time, his strength would immediately improve greatly. The woman surnamed Yao's stiff face was expressionless, but her eyes were slightly anxious. Seeing the two's reaction, an eye Xiao smiled and said, "Since junior apprentice sister Yao has sensed that the bronze-armored corpse is in the stone forest, then let's eliminate the bronze-armored corpse first before exploring the stone wall. Otherwise, if the bronze-armored corpses discover us and launch a sneak attack on us, it will be really dangerous in this place filled with restrictions." When the man surnamed Huang heard this, he immediately nodded and said, "Senior Marshal Brother and I is right. Let's deal with the bronze-armored corpse first." To him, the bronze-armored corpse was a bottle of medicinal pills that could increase his cultivation, so he definitely wouldn't let it go. And I Shao then said to the woman surnamed Yao, "Junior apprentice sister, at such a close distance, your perception of the bronze-armored corpse will be more accurate. Junior apprentice sister will be responsible for detecting the location of the bronze-armored corpse. Junior Marshal Brother Huang and I will explore the restrictions in the stone forest and find a gap to advance." After seeing the two of them nod, an eye Shao released a few more water balls, which turned into a light purple mist and surrounded them. As long as something tangible came into contact with the mist, it would be able to sense it. His mist was formed by using the magic power in his body to control the water vapor. With the Yin armor technique around his body, he wasn't afraid of being detected by the bronze-armored corpse. The Nine Spectres sect had operated in the Tsang province for many years, so their understanding of the Land of Death could be said to be deeper than any other sect. They knew that the ancient restrictions here were divided into defensive and offensive types. Defensive restrictions were difficult to detect with the power of spiritual sense, but tangible objects could be touched. As for offensive restrictions, although a core formation-level spiritual sense could barely detect them, there was a chance that the spiritual sense would be injured by the restriction. Therefore, using tangible objects to detect the restrictions was the most reliable. As for the man surnamed Huang, he released a similar technique and released a light black mist above their heads to detect the restrictions above them. As a result, the three of them slowed down and landed on the ground. They slowly advanced according to the gaps in the restrictions that they detected. As they went deeper, they increasingly felt that the restrictions here were messy. In some places, they could pass through between the stones, while in other places, they had to fly through the gaps in the restrictions that were several meters high. Gradually, the woman surnamed Yao felt that the bronze-armored corpse was getting closer and closer, while the expressions of an eye Shao and the man surnamed Huang also became more and more serious. They tried their best to restrain the fluctuations of the mist technique, because after entering the stone forest, the cold Yin energy became more and more concentrated. In this kind of environment, the bronze-armored corpse's senses were more sensitive. Suddenly, the woman surnamed Yao stopped and transmitted her voice. "Senior Marshal Brothers, you can withdraw the technique. I can sense that the bronze-armored corpse is about 300 meters ahead. Next, we'll walk slower. Junior Marshal Sister will release the technique to scout the path. This way, we won't be discovered." Seeing the two Senior Marshal Brothers nod, The woman, surnamed Yao's expression became serious. The Yin magic power in her body surged, and the cold Yin energy in the surroundings gradually converged towards them. She used the Yin armor technique to temporarily guide the cold Yin energy in the surroundings to replace the mist. Although the magic power consumption was large, the advantage was that they wouldn't be discovered. After the three of them went around 7 or 8 huge stones, they finally saw the bronze-armored corpse that they had been looking for a long time. About 100 feet in front of them, under a huge rock, there was a hole that was neither big nor small. Inside the hole, there was a brass-colored zombie with long green hair, lying quietly. Its body appeared to be slightly taller than the average person, but its bronze-colored skin exuded a coarse luster like that of a rock. It clearly had a high defensive power. From the angle of the three of them, they could see the bronze-armored corpse's sharp black nails. There was a faint black chi curling around them. This black chi should be the corpse poison that the woman, surnamed Yao, spoke of. The bronze-armored corpse was equivalent to the core formation stage of cultivators. It had condensed a corpse core in its body, and its corpse chi had already been completely restrained. As a result, they didn't smell any corrosive aura. And Shao and the others hid behind the Yin armor technique and carefully observed the bronze-armored corpse. They quickly discovered a wound on its chest, and their hearts relaxed slightly. This meant that the information they received was correct. The bronze-armored corpse was injured, and Shao transmitted his voice. There should be a sword wound on its chest. It's very likely that it was injured by a heavenly sword sect cultivator. In a moment, I will attack that area with all my strength. This guy is lying on the ground. We can't let go of such a good opportunity. Junior Marshal Sister Yao, try to bind its legs. Junior Marshal Brother Huang, cooperate with my attacks. The few of them nodded and secretly raised their transcendence energy. But at that moment, the bronze-armored corpse's nose suddenly twitched and it suddenly opened its eyes. Those turbid yellow eyeballs revealed a look of desire. When Shao saw this, his expression changed, and he immediately transmitted his voice. Do it. Just as his voice fell, a gray claw that wasn't much different from the surrounding cold Yin energy appeared above the bronze-armored corpse. It quickly pressed down like a giant hand pressing down on its legs. Chapter 541. The bronze-armored corpse's eyes were filled with rage. However, in the face of such a powerful attack, it didn't dare to take it head-on, even with its high physical defense. Moreover, its legs were being pressed down by the Yao woman's claw magic treasure. In this split second, it was simply unable to dodge. Fortunately, its rock-hard arms were still able to move. It quickly crossed its arms, and bursts of black chi surged from its rough skin. It intended to rely on its powerful physical defense to resist the core formation magic treasure's attack. The corners of the Huang man's mouth curled up at the sight of the cone-shaped magic treasure. Magic powers surged within his body as he formed a hand seal. The cone-shaped magic treasure flashed with black light and quickly spun on its own, ruthlessly drilling into the bronze-armored corpse's arms. An ear-piercing sound rang out. The black chi on the bronze-armored corpse's arms violently fluctuated, but was directly dispersed by the cone-shaped magic treasure, revealing its thick forearm. Although the black chi was dispersed, the cone-shaped magic treasure's spinning speed was greatly reduced. It only broke through the outermost layer of skin and sank into the forearm by an inch. The bronze-armored corpse roared. Seeing the magic treasure stuck in its arm, its other claw glowed with black light, and its 5 shiny black fingernails fiercely clawed at the cone-shaped magic treasure. As long as it was contaminated by the corpse poison on its claw, the magic treasure's power would be greatly reduced. But just as it was about to grab it, the cone-shaped magic treasure quickly spun again. Taking advantage of the bronze-armored corpse's weak resistance, it once again erupted with its strongest power. Although it still couldn't pierce through the bronze-armored corpse's arm, the magic treasure that the Huang man had refined for over 200 years wasn't something that the bronze-armored corpse's single arm could completely block. Bang! The cone-shaped magic treasure pressed down on the bronze-armored corpse's forearm and slammed into its forehead. Feeling the stinging pain on its forehead, the bronze-armored corpse became even more furious. It gasped for breath, but it had no choice but to withdraw its arm that was originally grabbing the magic treasure and rely on the strength of its arms to resist the attack. But at that moment, the bronze-armored corpse's eyes suddenly widened, and a trace of fear appeared in its turbid eyes. It turned out that when it retracted its arm and continued to contend with this cone-shaped magic weapon, a huge sword emitting a dazzling purple light quietly appeared in front of its chest at some unknown time, stabbing towards its sword wound. Boom! After the lightning sword struck the copper-armored corpse's chest, a terrifying power of lightning erupted. The glaring electric light illuminated the nearby stones purple. The huge bolt of lightning not only enveloped the copper-armored corpse, it even filled up the entire crater, turning into a huge ball of lightning. The sound of crackling lightning was endless, and the miserable howls of the copper-armored corpse were drowned out by the sound of the thunderstorm. The figures of the woman surnamed Yao and the man surnamed Huang also swayed slightly. Although an Ai Zhao's full power attack was not aimed at their magic treasures, in this small hole, the lightning attack could not avoid landing on their magic treasures. The surging power of the lightning even caused their magic treasures to lose contact with them for a short period of time. The two of them were astonished. Based on the power of this attack alone, an Ai Zhao was undoubtedly the #1 core formation cultivator in the sect. They looked at senior brother and I with even more respect. And Ai Zhao was completely unaware of their gazes. He frowned slightly and beckoned with his hand. The huge purple sword flashed out of the hole and flew towards him. Looking at his expression, he seemed to have discovered something strange. Following the return of the huge sword, the air emitted a scorched and corrosive smell. As core formation cultivators of the Nine Spectres sect, they only needed to take a slight sniff to identify the smell of corpse chi. The man surnamed Huang was overjoyed. Senior brother, the corpse chi cannot be concealed. This means that the copper-armored corpse is either dead or heavily injured. Let's destroy it in one go. As he spoke, he had already regained control of the cone-shaped magic treasure and immediately smashed it into the hole. But soon after, he revealed a stunned expression. Seeing this, an Ai Zhao immediately asked, "Junior brother Huang, you also discovered the hole below?" The man surnamed Huang still maintained a stunned expression. He formed a hand seal, and the cone-shaped magic treasure returned to his side. He said in shock, "There really is a hole. If it wasn't for the magic treasure suddenly missing, my spiritual sense wouldn't have been able to discover it." Beside him, the woman surnamed Yao's eyes flashed with astonishment. Her mind had already connected with the claw-shaped magic treasure, and she also discovered that the hole below was empty. They glanced at each other and cautiously activated the thick barrier around their bodies to the maximum. Then, they slowly walked towards the hole. Sure enough, when they arrived outside the hole that was emitting corpse chi, they saw the hole that was the size of an ordinary well. This hole was precisely where the copper-armored corpse was previously lying. At this moment, the copper-armored corpse was nowhere to be seen. Clearly, it had entered this hole. They looked at the pitch-black hole that their spiritual sense couldn't penetrate and were somewhat silent. After a while, the woman surnamed Yao suddenly said, "Senior brothers, junior sister feels that the dense cold Yin energy in the stone forest is being emitted from this hole." The man surnamed Huang's cultivation method was also more Yin type. After hearing this, he circulated the magic power in his body and carefully sensed it. His expression changed as he said, "Junior sister is right. However, I also feel that the cold Yin energy here is somewhat different from other places. It seems to be purer." And Ai Zhao looked pensive. Then he looked around and pondered for a while before asking, "Did you guys notice that we have been walking down since we entered the stone forest?" The other two heard this and immediately looked around. Previously, they had been paying attention to the copper-armored corpse and the restriction. Now, They realized that they were at the lowest point of the stone forest. The ground around them was rising. They seemed to be in the middle of a large circular hole, and the center was the underground hole in front of them. The man surnamed Huang said in shock, "Senior brother means that this hole is the source of the stone forest?" And Xiao didn't answer but continued, "Look, the concave parts of the stone walls on both sides. Don't they match the topography of the stone forest? It's as if there's an incomparably powerful energy erupting from underground. The terrifying power even shattered the stone walls on both sides." Hearing Zhao's words, the remaining two looked at the changes in the terrain around them and in the distance. Their eyes gradually revealed fear. Just by looking at the hole that stretched for several miles, they could imagine how terrifying the attack was. And Zhao's eyes flickered, and he continued, "However, such an attack is something that even the legendary divine transformation stage cultivators can't release. Furthermore, if such a terrifying fluctuation appeared, it would be impossible for us, the Nine Spectres sect, to not detect it since we are so close to the land of death. If that's the case, there is only one explanation." The woman surnamed Yao looked at the scattered restriction stones, and a thoughtful expression appeared in her eyes. She said, "Senior brother means that this is the restriction here?" And Xiao praised, "That's right. If this scene was caused by an attack, then this stone forest wouldn't exist at all. It would have been destroyed long ago. Therefore, the only possibility is that there's a problem with the restriction here." The man surnamed Huang was puzzled. "Restriction?" And Xiao said, "I've seen some ancient restriction jade slips in the sect. I know that the ancient restriction isn't set up by a formation plate, but by a formation pattern. The stronger the restriction, the more complicated the formation pattern, and the larger the range of the restriction. This stone forest and the stone walls on both sides could be a huge semicircular formation pattern. However, for some unknown reason, it caused a portion of the formation pattern to fail. Countless formation patterns clashed and exploded the stone walls and the ground, resulting in the appearance of this huge hole and stone forest. When the formation pattern exploded, the restriction on the outside didn't fail. It could completely conceal all the fluctuations. After hearing this explanation, the woman surnamed Yao thought it was reasonable. She looked at the dark hole in front of her and muttered, "If that's the case, then could this hole be—" Enai Zhao's voice trembled. "That's right. The cold Yin energy below is very likely the source of the ancient restriction outside." Chapter 542. Hearing Enai Zhao's words, the man surnamed Huang said excitedly, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go down quickly. The bronze-armored corpse has been here all this time, so it must have already gone in. If the bronze-armored corpse dared to go in after being heavily injured by us, it means it's not too dangerous." And Xiao pondered for a moment, knowing that his junior martial brother was right. If the cave below was dangerous, then the injured bronze-armored corpse wouldn't be here to heal. He looked at his junior martial sister again. The woman surnamed Yao said, "Senior martial brother, let's go in. The bronze-armored corpse has been heavily injured by us, so we must hurry up and chase after it. The Yin energy below is so pure. If it recovers more than half of its injuries, then the previous attack would have been in vain." And Xiao nodded and said, "All right, let's set off. However, we can't go down blindly. We have to make some preparations." The woman surnamed Yao slapped the spirit beast pouch at her waist, and a dark figure appeared in front of them. Its body was full of black muscles, and it also had a lot of green hair. An even stronger corpse chi emerged from its body. It was a refined corpse, and its body had mid-foundation establishment fluctuations. The woman surnamed Yao said with some regret, "Junior martial sister has used the Yin energy of many refined corpses to cultivate for so many years, but she only has one foundation establishment refined corpse. It's best to use a refined corpse to explore this cave full of Yin energy. Unfortunately, the other refined corpses in junior martial sister's possession are only at the chi refining stage. They'll be affected by the aura of the bronze-armored corpse, so they can't be used as scouts. The man surnamed Huang said, "It's enough to have one scout. After we go down, I'll also release the Een spirit rats. It should be foolproof." The woman surnamed Yao nodded, then controlled the black, refined corpse to jump down into the underground cave. She closed her eyes and sensed for a moment, then said, "Senior Marshal Brothers, there's a gray cave below. There's several passages, but I don't know where they lead." Although the Een energy below is so dense that Junior Marshal's sister can't sense the bronze-armored corpse. Since it's injured and can't suppress the corpse chi in its body, my refined corpse can definitely track it. The man surnamed Huang said impatiently, "All right, then let's go down." And I Shao suddenly said, "Junior sister, don't you still have some corpse refining threads? Take them out and place them near the cave entrance, just in case." The woman surnamed Yao was surprised at first, but then she nodded in agreement. She took out 10 strands of gray hair from her storage bag and made a hand seal, causing them to spread out in the vicinity. She understood what her senior brother meant. If they were to set up a defensive array here, it would only make it more conspicuous. It was better to set up this secret method. Even if other cultivators were to approach, they would be able to sense it. After the woman, surnamed Yao, finished setting up, the three of them jumped into the underground cave and disappeared into the stone forest. About half an hour later, a burly man appeared near the entrance of the underground cave. If there were cultivators present, they would find that this man did not have the slightest fluctuation of mana, just like a mortal. This man was Lu Kuan. Previously, he had disguised himself as an ordinary core formation cultivator because he knew that Enai Shao and the others had discovered him tailing them. He simply had them ambush him, causing them to lower their guard. Although the attack of Enai Zhao's giant sword was powerful enough to shatter Lu Kuan's shield, which was a pseudo-magic treasure that he had snatched from other cultivators, the impact of the giant sword did not cause any harm to him due to his physical defense. Furthermore, the powerful lightning energy that erupted from the giant sword only scorched his skin due to the lightning resistance of his concealed spiritual root. After pretending to be seriously injured and fleeing, he circled around and used the concealment magic power of a body cultivator and the ability of his concealed spiritual root to conceal his spiritual sense. Relying on a simple concealment talisman, he easily followed the 3 core formation cultivators of the 9 Spectres sect. As for the ancient restriction of the one-line sky, he was able to see it with his golden eyes when he was at Foundation Establishment. Now, he could easily detect it, allowing him to travel through the stone forest like a fish in water. Finally, he witnessed the heavily injured bronze-armored corpses in the underground cave that appeared behind them. Lu Kuan looked at the underground cave with a burning gaze. Previously, he had heard the conversation of the 3 and knew that there could be a great opportunity hidden below. He muttered, "If I were to fight them head-on in other places, I wouldn't have the confidence to kill them all. After all, these 3 have been in the core formation stage for many years and have many tricks up their sleeves. I still don't have a suitable magic treasure. With just the strength of my physical body, I can't kill them in one blow. These people are 9 Spectres sect cultivators and are proficient in the blood escape technique. Their life-saving abilities are extremely strong." A strange look flashed across Lu Kuan's eyes. But now, these people have entered the underground cave and are unable to use the blood escape technique. If they were to fight me in such a narrow place, I, Lu Kuan, have the confidence to kill them even if they are in the late core formation stage. Then, he directly walked towards the entrance of the cave. The surrounding corpse refining threads did not have any reaction. It was impossible to detect the tyrannical magic power hidden deep within the bones of his body. Lu Kuan lightly leapt forward and his entire body descended along the entrance of the cave. After descending for about 30 feet, he landed lightly in the cave. The soles of his feet and the ground did not make the slightest sound. He looked around and discovered that the surrounding walls of the cave were made up of a type of gray rock. When he used his spiritual sense to probe, it would be rebounded by a strange force. Clearly, This gray rock was able to isolate spiritual sense. Lu Kuan sensed the residual magic power fluctuations in the air and the claw and sword marks on the walls. He knew that the three from the Nine Spectres sect had discovered the gray rock's ability to isolate spiritual sense. They used their magic treasures to attack in an attempt to dig out this mysterious material. However, for some reason, they gave up in the end. Lu Kuan did not attack the rock. Instead, he channeled the spiritual sense of the peak of the mid-core formation stage into his eyes and used his eyes that emitted golden light to carefully observe the gray rock. Under the effect of the golden eye's divine ability, he discovered that there were many silver specks of light on the walls, faintly obstructing his golden eyes. This allowed Lu Kuan to somewhat understand. As a disciple of the weapon-refining peak of the Yang clan, he could determine that this was a type of or material. The silver specks of light were the most valuable part of the rock. However, if he wanted to obtain the material that could isolate spiritual sense, he would have to refine a large amount of this gray ore. Furthermore, from the traces left behind by the attacks of the previous few people, it would be very troublesome to harvest this or even with a core formation stage magic treasure. They had obviously discovered this point and thus gave up. Although Lu Kuan was interested in this strange ore, he did not have a weapon in hand and was unable to harvest it in a short period of time. He thought gloomily, let's deal with those people first. Later, I'll think about how to get some of this gray ore. Then, Lu Kuan lightly patted the spirit beast pouch on his waist. A yellow figure flashed and quickly scurried onto his shoulder. It grabbed his hair and winked as if it was very excited. Without needing Lu Kuan's reminder, the little monkey's ears twitched and it quickly pointed its paw forward. However, when Xiao Jin saw 3 dark passages, it retracted its paw and looked a little embarrassed. When Lu Kuan saw this, he laughed involuntarily. Although Xiao Jin could hear sounds, it could only determine the position of the enemy and had no way of knowing which passage the enemy had taken. However, Lu Kuan had his own ways. His nose twitched slightly. After a while, he revealed a smile and walked straight to the middle passage. Chapter 543. Enai Zhao's group of 3 walked into the depths of the cave, unaware that Lu Kuan was quietly following behind them. At that moment, they had already reached the deepest part of the cave. There were all kinds of strange objects scattered around. Some looked like fragments of giant eggshells, while others looked like the shells of large insects. In addition, there were also many fossilized limbs. These objects all emitted extremely dense energy, easily making people think of the mutated insects in the land of death. However, Enai Zhao's group of 3 didn't pay attention to the mess on the ground. Instead, they looked at the bronze-armored corpse lying in the corner of the cold cave. This terrifying corpse, which frightened ordinary cultivators in the outside world, had a large hole in its chest. The inside of the hole was charred black, and its aura was faintly discernible. The cave was filled with the stench of rotting corpses. That's what I said. How could a bronze-armored corpse survive Senior Martial Brothers' all-out attack? So it was just barely holding on by relying on its powerful body. The man surnamed Huang's tone contained a trace of flattery. Enai Zhao revealed a faint smile, appearing calm and relaxed. The magic power in his body surged, and the huge sword surrounded by lightning appeared in front of him. He planned to deal the final blow to the bronze-armored corpse. Senior Martial Brother, wait a moment. The woman surnamed Yao suddenly said. Seeing Enai Zhao's puzzled expression, she explained, if Senior Martial Brother wants to attack, aim for its head. This bronze-armored corpse's body is somewhat useful to Junior Martial Sister. Enai Zhao glanced at Junior Martial Sister Yao's black refined corpse and understood his Junior Martial Sister's plan. He nodded. Squeak, squeak, squeak. At that moment, a black-furred mouse under their feet let out a shriek. Its voice was filled with panic, and the black refined corpse also seemed to feel something, revealing fear in its eyes. This caused Enai Zhao's group to be slightly surprised. At that moment, a sudden change occurred. A pair of red eyes suddenly opened on the gray rock beside them, and a tall figure that seemed to be made of stone jumped down from the rock wall. The cave wasn't particularly large, and the three core formation cultivators immediately noticed the abnormality. They immediately poured magic power into the barrier outside their bodies, and at the same time began to urge the magic treasures inside their bodies to attack. But before they could control their magic treasures, the gray figure quickly rushed out with lightning speed. A piercing sound was heard. The man surnamed Huang, who was closest to the rock wall, suddenly widened his eyes and mouth slightly opened. He lowered his head as if he wanted to shout something, but the thick barrier outside his body had already shattered. It turned out that there was a rock-like human hand on his chest where his heart was. The fingertips had sharp black and gray nails, and a bright red heart that was still beating slightly was held in this hand. With a poochie sound, the heart was instantly crushed. Then, a ray of black light flew out from the gray figure's mouth and hit the head of the core formation cultivator. This core formation cultivator didn't even have time to leave his body before his head was crushed by the black light. Although many thoughts flashed through their minds, their hands did not slow down in the slightest. Enai Zhao's giant sword, which was originally used to attack the copper-armored corpse, took advantage of the moment when the gray figure killed his junior brother and struck it on the shoulder. The huge ball of lightning reappeared and poured all of its might onto the gray figure, illuminating the entire cave purple. The woman surnamed Yao wasn't idle either. She didn't use her claw-shaped magic treasure. Instead, she opened her mouth and shot out a dazzling black light towards the figure shrouded in lightning. This was the dark underworld slash that she had carefully refined using the corpse refining secret technique. Although it was difficult to refine and required a large amount of energy to refine, it could only be used once. However, its attack power was much stronger than her magic weapon. She wouldn't have used this move if the gray figure hadn't killed the man, surnamed Huang, and given her great pressure. Roar! A cry full of pain was heard. The figure shrouded in lightning seemed to have suffered a great deal of damage. Then, the gray stones exploded from the lightning and hit the pseudo-magic shields summoned by Enai Xiao and the woman surnamed Yao, producing clanking sounds. At the same time, Enai Xiao felt his huge sword being struck by a huge force and was sent flying. As for the surging lightning, it had already disappeared when the rocks exploded, revealing the people inside. At this time, the gray figure had shrunk to the size of an ordinary person, but it had a sinister and repulsive human face. There was a small hole on its left shoulder from which black blood was flowing. A faint corpse aura drifted out from it. Enai Zhao's pupils shrank. Zombie? Stone? The strange zombie in front of them was clearly wrapped in a layer of gray stone that blocked spiritual sense. They didn't notice its existence at all. Moreover, the stone also strengthened the zombie's defense. The two people's joint attack only slightly injured it. Fortunately, the stone was broken by them. The woman surnamed Yao also saw that it was a zombie. However, its skin wasn't completely bronze, but rather gray. Only a few places were mixed with a bronze color. She secretly urged the secret technique in her body to sense it. Then, fear appeared in her eyes and she cried out, "Not good. It's a mid-rank bronze armor corpse, and a peak mid-rank one at that." Enai Zhao's heart sank. This mid-rank bronze-armored corpse was comparable to a mid-rank core formation cultivator. Moreover, from his junior sister's tone, this guy was only a step away from a high-rank core formation cultivator. If he encountered this mid-rank bronze-armored corpse elsewhere, Enai Zhao naturally wouldn't be afraid. However, they were deep in this underground cave. In such a narrow place, even if his lightning power restrained the opponent, it was still very dangerous. The Nine Spectres' sect's records of refined corpses were very comprehensive. The biggest difference between a mid-rank bronze-armored corpse and a low-rank one was their attack power. The attack of a low-rank bronze-armored corpse was slightly weaker than the magic treasure of an early core formation cultivator. However, A mid-rank bronze armored corpse could still display a powerful attack at the peak of mid-rank core formation. From how it easily broke through an early core formation cultivator's magic power barrier, it could be seen that this terrifying refined corpse's attack power wasn't below an eye Zhao's. Black chi surged on the mid-rank bronze-armored corpse's shoulder. The wound had already healed. When it saw the two people who had taken defensive measures, its mouth slightly tilted as if revealing a mocking smile. Then it disappeared. Not good. An eye Zhao turned pale with fright. He formed a hand seal, and a layer of purple light appeared on the magic power barrier outside his body. Then a dozen lightning balls shot out from the barrier. Chi-chi. Two of the lightning balls immediately collided with a gray figure. The power of the lightning explosion caused the figure to slightly pause. After discovering the enemy, Enai Xiao decisively urged his huge sword magic treasure. It transformed into a thick, lightning sword and blasted towards the mid-rank bronze-armored corpse. However, the gray zombie was extremely fast. Its figure swayed and dodged the attack of the huge sword, continuing to charge towards Enai Xiao. In this moment of delay, the claw-shaped magic treasure of the female, surnamed Yao, had already appeared in front of Enai Xiao and grabbed at the gray zombie's legs. She clearly saw that the speed of the refined corpse was related to its legs. Chapter 544. The gray zombie remained expressionless, as if it hadn't seen the claw-shaped magic treasure flying towards its legs. It didn't dodge and continued to charge forward as if it didn't care about the magic treasure at all. The Yao woman sneered in her heart. Even if it was a mid-tier bronze-armored corpse, it would be hard for it to break free from her nether claw. Thus, she mobilized even more magic power and activated the nether claw magic treasure to the maximum. It turned into a giant bone claw and grabbed the gray corpse's legs. This caused the fast-moving gray zombie to stagger and almost fall. Enai Zhao's eyes lit up when he saw this. The giant sword that had missed its target earlier spun around and turned into a thick purple sword light. He took advantage of this opportunity and heavily bombarded the gray zombie's back. This attack directly knocked the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse to the ground. However, Enai Xiao didn't have time to activate the lightning within the giant sword in order to increase the attack speed. The Yao woman's eyes flashed with an ominous glint when she saw her enemy fall to the ground. She formed another hand seal, and the magic power in her body surged out like a river that had broken through a dam. The nether claw that was holding the gray zombie's legs released black light. Ropes made of black spirit light extended from the 5 claws and bound the zombie's legs. After casting the spell, the woman named Yao let out a sigh of relief. She felt that she had used up more than half of her magic power. She ordered the terrified black, refined corpse to block in front of her. Then, she took out a pill to recover some magic power. The black spirit light that extended from the nether claw was a magic treasure ability that she had refined over the past 100 years based on the secret technique that Wang Shitong had left behind. It was a special ability that could restrain enemies. In the past, Wang Shitong had relied on this ability to capture the bronze-armored corpse alive. Now that she had used this ability, the gray zombie no longer had the advantage in speed. The Yao woman was relieved when she saw the gray zombie blocking the lightning sword with its right claw. Even a mid-tier bronze-armored corpse wouldn't be able to last long under passive defense. Just as the Yao woman's fear was greatly reduced, and she swallowed a pill to recover some magic power, she suddenly felt that the cold energy in the cave was somewhat abnormal. It seemed to be gathering towards the bronze-armored corpse. Then, she saw the zombie's red eyes staring straight at her as if it was looking at a dead person. Seeing this, the woman surnamed Yao didn't know why, but she felt a bone-piercing chill. Suddenly, the bronze-armored corpse raised its left arm that hadn't moved all this time, and several rays of grayish-black light flashed. There was a sharp explosion in the air, and even the cold energy in the cave was rolling. Ah! The woman surnamed Yao let out a sharp scream, before abruptly stopping. A bloody hole had appeared on the forehead of this female core formation cultivator of the Nine Spectres sect, and blood was flowing out from it. The black refined corpse in front of her had unknowingly prostrated itself on the ground and remained motionless, as if it had voluntarily moved aside. As for the pseudo-magic treasure shield in front of him, a hole appeared in the middle, and the protective light around his body also shattered. With a plop, the woman's body fell to the ground. Soon after, 5 grayish-black lights flew out from her body and landed on the left hand of the gray zombie, fusing with its 5 fingers. These 5 grayish-black lights were actually its incomparably sharp fingernails. It took advantage of the fact that the woman surnamed Yao's magic power was greatly depleted, and she was distracted by taking medicine pills to launch this strange attack. Furthermore, the woman surnamed Yao didn't think that this mid-tier bronze-armored corpse would have such terrifying long-range explosive power. Furthermore, the black refined corpse in front of her was easily intimidated and unexpectedly moved aside. With the death of the woman surnamed Yao, she naturally lost control of her underworld claw, and the black rope on it also disappeared. This meant that the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse had regained its mobility. Boom! A huge, dazzling ball of lightning appeared once again and wrapped around the gray zombie. Enai Zhao's complexion appeared very unsightly under the illumination of this purple light. He quickly took out a medicine pill to recover his magic power and firmly enveloped the ball of lightning with his spiritual sense. This damned mid-tier bronze-armored corpse's attack power is truly formidable. Previously, it was able to block my Thunder God sword with a single claw. However, even if its claws are powerful, it's still only a zombie. The power of Een in its body is restrained by the power of thunder and lightning. Without the gray rock, it would at least be seriously injured by my all-out attack. Although the woman surnamed Yao had previously frozen the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse in place, his Thunder God sword had only struck its arm for the first time. The following rapid attacks had all been blocked by its sharp claws. However, when this fellow was about to kill the woman surnamed Yao, Enai Zhao seized the opportunity and formed a hand seal, fully activating the lightning ability of his Thunder God sword. He accurately struck the left shoulder of the gray zombie, which was also the location where they had previously injured it. After taking the medicine pill, Enai Zhao's complexion became slightly better. Even with his magic power at the peak of the mid-core formation stage, he still appeared somewhat exhausted after using such a powerful move twice in a row. Suddenly, Enai Zhao's complexion changed. He threw the pseudo-magic treasure shield in front of him forward. At the same time, the Thunder God's sword appeared outside his protective shield, and the huge sword body acted as a second line of defense. As soon as these measures were completed, the gray claws that had previously killed his junior martial sister, Yao, shot out from the ball of lightning and directly penetrated the shield. Then, with 5 crisp sounds, they were blocked by the Thunder God's sword and fell to the ground. When Enai Zhao saw this, he didn't relax in the slightest. Purple light flashed in his hand, and an earthen yellow bracelet, exuding an ancient aura, appeared in front of him. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the bracelet and formed a profound hand seal at the same time. At this moment, the ball of lightning had already disappeared, revealing the charred body of the mid-tier, bronze-armored corpse. Its left arm was completely empty. The entire left arm had fallen to the ground, and the claws on it had all disappeared. The mid-tier, bronze-armored corpse looked at the severed arm on the ground with scarlet eyes, appearing incomparably furious. When it had attacked with its left claw, the power of Een in its left arm had greatly decreased, allowing the power of thunder and lightning to enter its body through the wound on its left arm. It had no choice but to sever its arm. Otherwise, if a large amount of thunder and lightning entered its body, its injuries would be much more serious. Seeing that its left claw attack was futile and Enai Zhao was muttering in place, the bronze-armored corpse raised its right hand, and the power of Een in the entire cave converged towards it. At this moment, Enai Zhao's hand seal was also completed. The earthen yellow bracelet floated to his forehead, and a foot-thick yellow shield enveloped him. Whoosh whoosh! The bronze-armored corpse had also finished its preparations. The 5 grayish-black fingernails were like flying daggers as they connected together and shot towards Enai Shao. The Thunder God sword had been refined by Enai Shao for several hundred years and was made of extremely high-quality materials. The flying dagger-like claws were unable to penetrate it, but the powerful penetrating force was still able to easily send it flying. Then, the 5 rays of light bombarded the yellow shield around Enai Zhao's body. Pucci! The 5 rays of light pierced into the shield, but it was unknown what kind of ability this shield had. After the sharp claws entered, they were all stuck in the foot-thick spirit light, unable to advance or retreat. However, Enai Zhao's face became even paler because of this. Without another word, he turned around and shot out of the cave without the slightest intention of continuing the fight. The mid-tier, bronze-armored corpse was slightly stunned, but then it also rushed out. Although it had lost its left arm and its right claw was trapped, for a zombie body, the injury wasn't too serious. The 5 left claws that were scattered on the ground flew up and sank into its right hand. The left claw was still a powerful weapon after being embedded in the right hand. Chapter 545. Enai Zhao's expression sank as he continuously circulated his remaining magic power and sped towards the exit of the cave, completely ignoring the attacks of the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse behind him. The sharp claws of the bronze-armored corpse's right hand continuously struck the yellow barrier formed by the mysterious bracelet, producing a series of muffled sounds. Every attack of the grayish-black claw was as swift as a gust of wind. If it accidentally struck the grayish stone wall, it would leave a clear mark. It was clear that its attack power was extremely powerful. The bronze-armored corpse, madly chasing after him, saw that his opponent's speed was not affected by his attacks in the slightest. His eyes flickered with astonishment as he carefully looked at the defensive spirit light. Only then did he discover that his sharp claws, which could originally easily tear apart an early core formation cultivator's magic power barrier, were always ineffective against the foot-thick spirit light. The sharp claws were only able to break through the outermost layer. The deeper they went, the slower the claws became, as if they were greatly hindered. Every attack was only able to strike the center of the yellow spirit light. It was still far from harming Enai Shao. Although this core formation cultivator of the 9 Spectres sect wasn't very fast compared to the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse, it was unable to accumulate power to launch its most powerful attack while it was in pursuit. Furthermore, when such a fast attack struck the protective barrier, it even felt a suction force trying to trap its right hand within the strange spirit light. The mid-tier bronze-armored corpse was extremely intelligent. Naturally, it wouldn't allow its right hand to be sucked in by the spirit light. It simply lowered the strength of its physical attacks and controlled the tyrannical Yin power within its body to wildly surge out. A large amount of Yin power adhered to its sharp claws as it attacked the periphery of the spirit light. The bronze-armored corpse, with its extremely strong battle instincts, attempted to use its Yin power to wear down the spirit light of its opponent. To the bronze-armored corpse, using the Yin power within its body to attack was not the slightest bit weak. Furthermore, the Yin power it consumed could be replenished in a timely manner. Although Enai Shao was wholeheartedly focused on escaping, the bronze-armored corpse's attacks could not be hidden from him. Seeing such a scene, he became even more fearful of the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse. He had obtained this bracelet magic treasure many years ago when he explored a secret place. It was an authentic psychic magic treasure called the Nightmare Spirit Bracelet. This Bailing bracelet was an earth elemental psychic magic treasure that focused on defense. Unfortunately, it was not compatible with the element of his cultivation art. Every time he activated it, he would need a certain amount of blood essence and a large amount of magic power. Moreover, Enai Shao could only use the body protecting spiritual light. As for the other divine ability, he couldn't use it at all due to the difference in attributes. However, just the protective spiritual light of the Nightmare Spirit Bracelet alone had greatly increased Enai Zhao's strength. He had studied it before and found that with his magic power, he could easily withstand a late core formation stage attack. Moreover, if one's magic power was sufficient, they could even temporarily trap the enemy's magic treasure in a dense spiritual light. Relying on this ability, Enai Zhao had once resisted 2 cultivators of the same level by himself. It was truly terrifying. However, this protective spirit light also had a weakness, which was that it couldn't withstand high-frequency spell attacks. What if it was hit by dozens of intermediate spell talismans? If it hit, the spiritual light would be mostly destroyed. Now, the mid-grade bronze-armored corpse's attack was equivalent to a large number of spell attacks. He didn't expect that the bronze-armored corpse's battle instincts would be so strong that it could immediately find the Nightmare Spirit Bracelet's weakness. Enai Zhao felt the extent of the spiritual light's weakening and let out a sigh of relief. The cave and the stone forest outside weren't particularly long. With his speed, it wouldn't take long for him to return the way he came. The Nightmare Spirit Bracelet could completely support him. Once he reached a more spacious place, he could completely fly into the air and engage in a second round of battle with a one-armed bronze-armored corpse. At that time, even if he couldn't defeat it, the space outside would allow him to use the blood escape technique to escape. In this way, he would be in an invincible position. Moreover, if he overdrew his magic power, he might even be able to kill this terrifying mid-grade bronze-armored corpse. At that time, not only would he be able to obtain 2 corpse cores, but he would also be able to take the items in his junior martial brother and sister storage pouches. In any case, those 2 people were killed by the bronze-armored corpse. Thinking of this, Enai Zhao's complexion improved slightly. Seeing that he was about to reach the cave's exit, he couldn't help but begin to ponder how to deal with this terrifying injured zombie once he reached the outside. However, just as Enai Zhao flew to the last tunnel, a huge fist about the size of his head appeared in front of him. It was surrounded by the same glaring lightning, and a tyrannical pressure came rushing towards him. Bang! That huge fist directly hammered against his protective spiritual light. Even with the protection of the Nightmare Spirit Bracelet, Enai Zhao still felt a terrifying force assaulting him. Compared to this kind of power, the claws of the bronze-armored corpse behind him were nothing. Fortunately, Enai Zhao's Nightmare Spirit Bracelet completely blocked the power of this attack. However, he was still sent flying by the boundless force. After this attack, the terrifying huge fist slowly shrunk and returned to the size of an ordinary fist. Then, a tall and sturdy figure appeared at the entrance of the passage and blocked most of the light coming from the cave's exit. "It's you." Enai Zhao's expression changed. He recognized at a glance that this person was the early core formation cultivator from the state of Chu that he had beaten away. But now, this person gave him the feeling that he wasn't injured at all. The early core formation cultivator's magic power wasn't too bad, but the pressure from the tall and sturdy figure was no less than that of a 6th or 7th grade demon beast. It was as if this person in front of him was a primordial beast. Thinking of the terrifying fist just now, a thought flashed through Enai Zhao's mind. He couldn't help but exclaim, "No, you're Lu Kuan, the remnant of the Yang clan." Then, with a face full of disbelief, he said, "You've actually entered the core formation stage." When Lu Kuan escaped from the land of death, it was Enai Zhao who assigned the task of tracking him. At the exit of the land of death, it was the recently deceased junior martial brother Huang and junior martial sister Yao who blocked him. During that interception, Lu Kuan's arm technique, combined with the strength of his body, was actually able to barely block the attack of a core formation stage magic treasure. How could Enai Zhao forget such a terrifying foundation establishment stage cultivator? The person in front of him had a body of lightning attribute magic power. He also had a pair of giant arms, but an even more frightening physical strength. If it wasn't Lu Kuan from the Yang clan, who else could it be? I didn't think that fellow Taoist and I from the Nine Spectres sect would know of me, Lu. It's a pity that your junior marshal brother and junior marshal sister are already dead. Otherwise, I would have personally taken revenge for being hunted down all those years ago." After being called out by an Shao, Lu Kuan froze for a moment before laughing out loud. His original face distorted and returned to its original appearance. An Zhao's eyes flashed with a complicated expression. He somewhat regretted that he didn't personally go to the land of death to deal with this person. Otherwise, the current situation wouldn't have occurred. At this moment, the only passageway to the cave was blocked. There was also a mid-level bronze-armored corpse behind him. Judging from the strength Lu Kuan displayed in the Foundation establishment stage, he definitely couldn't be underestimated after entering the core formation stage. An Shao was still activating the Nightmare Spirit Bracelet, so he simply didn't have the extra spiritual sense to use the Thunder God's sword to its maximum power. Thinking back to Lu Kuan's attack just now, he felt that there was no way he could charge out. However, An Shao discovered that the bronze-armored corpse behind him was staring fixedly at Lu Kuan after he appeared. It even stopped attacking him. This made An Zhao's heart tremble. The magic power in his body was once again raised. He immediately activated his escape technique and actually turned around, shooting rapidly towards the depths of the cave. The bronze-armored corpse midway didn't stop him. Chapter 546. Lu Kuan looked at An Shao, who had disappeared into the tunnel, with a look of astonishment on his face. Then, he showed an indifferent expression. Previously, when the 9 Spectres sect cultivators and the bronze-armored corpse were fighting, he had already secretly explored the situation in this tunnel. He knew that there was only one path in this tunnel, and there were no other forks that led directly to the depths of the cave. Even if An Shao tried to escape, he was still trapped in this cave and could not use the blood escape technique. Swish! Swish! Just as Lu Kuan's expression was still unreadable, a grayish-black light flashed, and the sound of air being torn apart could be heard. It turned out that the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse had sensed Lu Kuan's daze and suddenly launched an attack. Its grayish-black sharp right claw viciously slashed at Lu Kuan's neck. Its eyes flashed with desire, as if it wanted to see the scene of blood gushing out when the throat was slit. At the same time, it stuck out a barbed tongue from its mouth and licked its dry and blackened lips, as if it was about to taste some kind of delicious food. In the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse's mind, the human cultivator was so close to it and did not even release a defensive barrier. Its lightning-fast attack could easily kill the human cultivator. After that, it could suck the exuberant chi and blood of the human in front of it to its heart's content. It could be said that it had never smelled such delicious blood in the thousands of years it had been conscious. It even felt that as long as it devoured the human in front of it, it could advance to a high-tier bronze-armored corpse. This way, it would be one step closer to becoming a silver-armored corpse. But then, the greed in the bronze-armored corpse's eyes paused. The feeling of flesh being torn apart did not come as it expected. What followed was a feeling of emptiness. The awkwardness of suddenly hitting air even made its body somewhat unstable. At this moment, it heard a thunderous roar. Immediately after, a terrifying force came from its broken left arm. That force was much stronger than its own, and it staggered back and crashed into the rock wall. Roar! The copper-armored corpse let out an angry roar. Its reaction was extremely fast. The moment it hit the wall, it kicked off with both legs, turned its body quickly, and swept its right arm with its sharp claws. Dang! This sweeping strike missed again and bombarded the wall, leaving several claw marks on the rock. TSK. This speed and reaction are indeed very strong. If I hadn't entered the Bone Treasure stage, I wouldn't have been able to keep up. Lu Kuan's figure was still at the entrance of the passageway, as if he hadn't moved at all. He watched the copper-armored corpse fighting with the air with great interest. As if knowing that this human was not easy to deal with, the copper-armored corpse retracted its greedy and angry eyes. It bent its body and leaned against the wall. Looking at Lu Kuan, who had dodged 2 of its attacks, the copper-armored corpse's gaze turned calm. Then, the cold energy in the tunnel began to move, and the sharp claws on his right arm began to emit a black light. At this moment, another thunderous roar rang out. Lu Kuan turned into an afterimage and disappeared on the spot. This shocked the bronze-armored corpse. It stopped shooting its claws and immediately swept them to its left. Boom! Rip! Purple and black light intertwined. Lu Kuan's figure reappeared at the entrance of the passageway, but this time there were 3 claw marks on his right arm that were so deep that the bone could be seen. There was also a faint black aura on them that was trying to drill into the depths of his arm. Lu Kuan looked at the wound and frowned slightly. Then, a glaring thunderbolt enveloped his arm, and a foul smell was emitted. The black aura disappeared, and at the same time, the wound on his arm began to heal. Seeing this, the copper-armored corpse's blood-red pupils shrank, and its eyes flickered. Its right claw pressed on the wound on its left arm. There were some electric sparks there, but they were extinguished by the cold, energy surging in its body. Haha, as expected of a mid-level copper-armored corpse. Come again. Lu Kuan laughed. Without taking out any weapons, he clenched his fists and rushed towards the mid-level core formation zombie with thunderous explosion steps. Roar! The copper-armored corpse seemed to have a tacit understanding. Its figure flashed and quickly met with him. Then, the 2 figures crisscrossed in the passageway, and from time to time, attacks hit the stone walls. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light. As they exchanged blows, he observed with his golden eyes. He discovered that although the mid-level copper-armored corpse was extremely fast in a straight line, it would slow down when it needed to turn around. For other cultivators, there was almost no difference because the copper-armored corpse's short-distance movement speed was far superior to theirs. It didn't make much of a difference if it slowed down a bit. However, for a body cultivator like Lu Kuan, the slightest delay in turning around was a huge flaw. His burly figure was extremely nimble. He didn't meet the copper-armored corpse's sharp claws head-on. Instead, he took advantage of the gap between the copper-armored corpse's turning speed and aimed at the wound on its left arm. Then, he threw a punch that contained thunder and lightning and a force of over 100,000 Jin. After hitting the enemy, Lu Kuan wasn't greedy and quickly dodged the incoming claw attacks. In this way, the copper-armored corpse was like a fast-moving sandbag that was bombarded by Lu Kuan at will. Apart from constantly waving its right arm, it had almost no power to resist. This made the copper-armored corpse feel extremely sullen. It was even somewhat humiliated to be suppressed in the area it was most proud of. BZZT, BZZT. Another thunder and lightning fist bombarded the wound on its left arm, emitting the sound of thunder and lightning and the power of destroying each other. The wound on its arm was continuously attacked by the power of thunder and lightning of the early core formation realm. Even though the mid-level copper-armored corpse was in this cave full of power, it still felt a wave of weakness. The copper-armored corpse felt a chill in its heart. The greed in its eyes had long since disappeared without a trace. After being hit by Lu Kuan's punch, it stomped on the ground and simply turned around, quickly running into the depths of the cave. Lu Kuan looked at the mid-level copper-armored corpse that fled in panic. His face showed that he hadn't had enough. Most of the opponents he encountered in the past were cultivators who either used spells or magic treasures to attack. And this copper-armored corpse's attack methods were almost exactly the same as his body cultivators. This kind of close combat, the feeling of fist hitting flesh, made him feel incomparably comfortable. It's a pity that this guy lost an arm when fighting with the people from the Nine Spectres sect. Otherwise, with both arms intact, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy for me to fight it. After all, this guy's claws are comparable to a magic treasure refined by a core formation realm cultivator for many years. If I get hit by them, even with the defense of the defensive thunder barrier, my muscles will be torn apart. Lu Kuan shook his head. Lightning flashed under his feet as he chased after the copper-armored corpse. At the same time, he pondered, although my muscles can't withstand it, my bones, which have already become the embryonic form of a bone treasure, can barely withstand it. However, the sharpness of its claws is far beyond mine. Lu Kuan's expression was somewhat excited. Its claws can be said to be an extension of its bones. It's equivalent to refining a part of its bones into a magic treasure. Generally speaking, such powerful copper-armored corpses are transformed from the body of a cultivator after their death due to some kind of special transformation of the soul's resentment. Compared to the body of a demon beast, it is closer to that of a human. This means that this copper-armored corpse has great reference value for my bone treasure realm body refinement technique. Chapter 547. When it came to short-range explosive force in a narrow space, Lu Kuan's muscles and sensitive nerves that had been tempered for many years had too many advantages over the bronze-armored corpse's stiff, dead muscles. Even on the ground, Lu Kuan's thunderous explosion steps were much faster than the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse, not to mention that he didn't slow down in the slightest when he was turning. Therefore, the bronze-armored corpse's frightening speed was completely at a disadvantage in front of Lu Kuan. If it couldn't keep up with its speed, it couldn't hit the enemy. Even if it had a stronger attack power, it was useless. The bronze-armored corpse's long-range attack that killed the woman surnamed Yao had extremely high short-range explosive speed. However, since it was fighting Lu Kuan in close combat, the bronze-armored corpse's attack didn't have any place to use it. A purple and a gray figure flashed through the cavern passage. Lu Kuan's full-speed burst caught up to the bronze-armored corpse in no time. Bang! Lu Kuan was behind the gray zombie. He raised his fist, which flickered with purple lightning, and adjusted the muscles in his body to store power. His fist, which contained a terrifying strength of 200,000 kilograms, fiercely hammered the bronze-armored corpse's back. 200,000 kilograms was equivalent to the weight of fine iron the size of a small house. With such a terrifying force condensed on his fist, the power it released was incomparably terrifying. The mid-tier bronze-armored corpse was easily sent flying. However, it only rolled once on the ground before quickly jumping up and continuing to run deeper into the cavern. It seemed that it only staggered a little, as if such a terrifying attack couldn't do much damage to it. Lu Kuan looked at the cracked skin on his fist and clicked his tongue in wonder. When it comes to tempering the muscles, although the bronze-armored corpse has lost the vitality of its muscles, the defensive power of its muscles is far above mine. I hit it a total of 8 times. Each punch was no less than the attack of a mid-core formation arcane treasure. It actually blocked them with its muscles alone. This means that the bronze-armored corpse's muscles are equivalent to a top-notch defensive arcane treasure. That's why I can block attacks of this level. The bone treasure stage of body cultivators is the process of tempering the flesh and bones into magical treasures. But this bronze-armored corpse has already refined the flesh and muscles to the magical treasure level. These are 2 completely different paths. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind as he caught up with the gray zombie that had slowed down. Forget it, I'll just seriously injure it. After capturing it alive, I'll have plenty of time to study it. Let's get rid of Ni Shao first. He raised his head and looked at the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse that had just reached the deepest part of the cave, as well as Ni Shao, who had a look of surprise in the corner of the cave. Lu Kuan shook his arms, and a surge of qi and blood flashed past. His arms suddenly swelled up, becoming thicker than his thighs. Blue veins wrapped around them, making them look extremely ferocious. A tyrannical and heart-palpitating aura emerged from his arm. At this moment, he directly activated the Power Arm Divine ability. His physical strength instantly increased by 50%, reaching the level of 150,000 kilograms. Boom! The skull-sized fists, wrapped in dazzling lightning, were like 2 terrifying arcane treasures as they heavily hammered the 2 shoulder blades on the back of the bronze-armored corpse. If 200,000 kilograms of strength was slightly stronger than this mid-tier bronze-armored corpse, then 150,000 kilograms was completely crushing. The gray zombie let out a painful roar, and a mouthful of filthy black blood spurted out from its mouth. Its entire body was like a kite with a broken string as it smashed into the gray wall with a loud bang. Even the entire cave trembled a little from this blow. Then, the bronze-armored corpse slid to the ground like a dead fish. Its right arm trembled a few times, trying to support its body to stand up. But as soon as it raised its arm, it didn't have enough strength left and fell back down. Seeing this, Lu Kuan sneered. The body of this bronze-armored corpse was similar to that of a human. As the founder of body cultivation, he was extremely familiar with the structure of the human body. Just now, he had aimed his attack at this fellow's shoulder blades. This mid-tier bronze-armored corpse had strong muscles, which meant that its bones were relatively weak. Otherwise, it wouldn't only have this level of strength. Even with the protection of arcane treasures, the shoulder blades of the corpse had already been shattered under Lu Kuan's terrifying strength of 150,000 kilograms. In addition, the bronze-armored corpse's muscles were extremely stiff. Without the support of its bones, its muscles couldn't be used at all, so of course it couldn't get up. Lu Kuan's figure flashed, and he quickly arrived beside the bronze-armored corpse that was lying on the ground and preparing to bend its legs to support itself. His pair of hammer-like fists hammered heavily at the two hip joints of the corpse's pelvis. The two violent tremors from the ground were like heavy hammers that struck Enai Zhao's heart. Enai Zhao, who was hiding in the corner of the cave and secretly recovering his magic power under the protection of the spiritual light, had a dumbfounded expression on his face. How long has it been? This terrifying zombie that killed his junior brothers and sisters was actually beaten to such a miserable state. It even looked like it had lost the ability to move. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Lu Kuan's strength was. Lu Kuan saw that the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse's bones had been crippled and that it no longer had the strength to move. He stopped using the connecting arm's divine ability and frowned as he felt the magic power consumption in his body. He frowned as he used the connecting arm's divine ability for only a few attacks, and his magic power was almost depleted by more than 10%. This meant that the connecting arm's divine ability could only be used for about 40 attacks at full power. It seems that the connecting arm's divine ability can't be used casually after entering the bone treasure stage. If the magic power of the core formation stage is depleted too much, it will take a long time to recover. After this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Kuan glanced at the trembling foundation establishment stage refined corpse in the cave and the little mouse that was pretending to be dead. Then, he turned to look at Enai Zhao. Enai Zhao said with some embarrassment, "Fellow Taoist Lu, I don't have any direct enmity with you. Kacha, Kacha." Just as Enai Zhao was trying to get Lu Kuan to let him go, the sound of rocks cracking suddenly came from the cave, cutting off his words. The bronze-armored corpse that was still struggling immediately lay on the ground motionlessly after hearing this sound. At the same time, the rolling-in power on its body was completely absorbed into its body. Even the beginner-level bronze-armored corpse that was about to die was doing its best to restrain the remaining cold energy in its body. Such a scene made Lu Kuan and Enai Zhao stare blankly. "What's that?" Lu Kuan's eyes were sharp and immediately discovered that thumb-sized gray ants with large mandibles on their heads had gushed out from the rocks on the walls. Moreover, they had the yin power of the qi condensation stage on their bodies. Enai Zhao also discovered these ants. Looking at their color and appearance, his mind faintly had some impression, but he couldn't recall it at the moment. After a few more breaths, the gray rocks of the entire cave were almost covered with these ferocious ants. There seemed to be at least tens of thousands of them. Wong wong. These gray ants suddenly opened the transparent wings on their backs and actually flew up at the same time, pouncing towards all the creatures in the cave. Lu Kuan subconsciously prepared to activate his core formation stage defensive thunder barrier, But when he saw the mid-tier bronze-armored corpse on the ground like a dead fish, he had a thought and copied the bronze-armored corpse. Not only did he not use his magic power to protect himself, he even absorbed all of his magic power into his bones. After he finished doing this, he discovered that the number of flying ants pouncing towards him had decreased by more than half, while most of them rushed towards Anai Shao, who was covered in a thick protective spiritual light. When Anai Shao saw the overwhelming number of flying ants rushing towards him, he was startled at first, but when he saw the nightmare spirit bracelet on his head, his uneasy heart relaxed slightly. But soon after, his pupils suddenly dilated and he revealed a look of horror. He saw that the thick protective barrier formed by the psychic magic treasure was thinning at a speed visible to the naked eye. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.